Welcome to the Hobby Hour, episode 20, and Out of the Frying Pan special. Oh, we told you we'd do it one day when there was big enough news.
Yeah, not bad. It's been a while since we've done this, both the cast in general, and it has been a very long time since we did anything out of the frying pan related. But
Yes.
It's finally here, much like news on Middle-earth in general,
Yes.
which we'll come to later.
Yeah, well, we did promise that we would at least get the logo back out again and stick it on the screen while we were talking about Middle-earth at some point when there was something big enough, either of us doing a big enough project or something that it called for it, or it was going to take up enough of the show. And there's enough news, and we're old to this, you know, that all of the content creators who cover Middle-earth all the time have covered this already, and I didn't feel any need to rush it, and we were going to do a hobby hour anyway, so it was a case of, well, let's talk about that as our main topic today, really. So we're not going to be telling anyone anything new, but we're going to be giving our thoughts on it, I suppose. But we are going to do the rest of the show as normal to start with. So we're going to do all of our normal catch-ups. So whether you're an Out of the Frying Pan viewer who've come back just for this, or a Hobby Hour viewer, it's the same old. We talk a lot about news. So we're going to mention other game systems and things first, and then we'll talk about our own hobby. So news first, Dan. So shall we start with the first thing you mentioned? Actually, you've brought a couple of things up, which was on my kind of radar, but I didn't know how much it was on your radar, which is quite interesting. So the first one is Trench Crusade.
Well, my knowledge of this still relatively small. Basically, I've seen some really cool minis floating around X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it. Musk's Playground, which makes it sound revolting, just as revolting as Musk's Playground probably is. So loads of cool minis have been kicking around on there now. People have obviously been receiving their Kickstarter pledge models. Some of them are super cool. It's got a very it reminds me very much, and you have to forgive me, people who haven't heard of this, please do look it up, because it was like a properly awesome game. It's called Dante's Inferno. It was available, I think it was PlayStation 2, and it had a really similar design aesthetic style to it. A lot of people have likened it to Elden Ring and Bloodborne and things like that, but it really screams Dante's Inferno to me. It's got this very more adult Castlevania thing to it. I think there's another way of looking at it as well, in that sort of with the mix with the trenches. So it's religious pseudo significance and weird little shrines and undead, and it's just super cool. I might see if I can get hold of some minis. I didn't back the Kickstarter, but the more I've seen of it, I mean, I've seen some of the images that are kicking around online, but the more I see of it, the more I'm interested in just painting some bits. The scale looks quite nice as well.
Yeah.
So
it looks fantastic. It's something that I would have been all over at certain points in my wargaming life, and I think it just came at the time when I was so busy and so into other things. But it looks fantastic. Obviously, the rules, Thomas Pirinen of XGW, 6th edition fantasy, Mordheim fame is behind it, and it's just fantastic. I know that he's playing at the group of, John Blanche is playing the game. So
didn't he do some of the art for it as well?
I think he may have. So even if it's just concept, I'm not 100% sure. But again, I've not followed it because I've not had the bandwidth to.
No.
But there would have been points that I just would have been all over this, and I just haven't got the time to get into it, so to speak, right now. But doesn't mean I never will. So while we've been talking, I just showed the Kickstarter page and scrolled through some of the artwork and imagery and things on there at the moment, so that people could see what we were talking about. But it does look great.
I am doing this blind to break the fourth wall in there. I've got no idea what's going on. You could be putting up all sorts.
You don't get to see. I'm sure there's a way of me sharing with you what I can see on my screen, but that's learning even more tech. So
it just means I'm not in on the joke. He's with stupid. We know it's fine. But it looks
great. I can imagine you painting it. I can definitely, and it looked like on the Kickstarter page there were some 54mm versions of some of the miniatures as well.
Yeah.
And I can imagine if you're just looking at picking up a couple to paint, then that would be
Yeah,
something that's
there's some
appealing
kind
for
of
you.
cardinal-esque sort of weird cloaked figure, which is really cool, like Death Pope.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
he
yeah.
looks awesome. If I can get that in 54, I'm sort of hoping what'll happen is I'll go to a show and we keep on saying it, but I really think next year we should do Salute. I'm
Absolutely,
hoping
yeah.
we'll be wandering around and I'll see it and I'll just throw my money at
I'll
them.
have it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll paint it, which will be super cool because it's an opportunity to make a cool trench base and do some other bits and pieces. And you know, there's lots of opportunity in there for some interesting ideas like OSL and stuff. You know, lanterns hanging off the edge of bits and pieces in the trench, and it illuminates him up, and all things on fire, and yeah, loads of fun.
Yeah.
So it sort of sparks the creative juices, that particular game system. I love the aesthetic. It's very, very cool.
Yeah,
That's definitely one on my radar.
Really cool. I imagine a lot of the people we know from the Heresy community would look at some of those miniatures and just think, that's going to fit right in with the sort of art style that they were used to. The next thing, I mean, I only mentioned it to you briefly before we got started, but was Wargames Atlantic, a US company that make sort of cheaper alternative plastics, but really good quality always, and they seem to fit in little niches. And I know that what have they done in the past? They've done some British riflemen that look very much like Sharp in plastic. They've done some sort of alternative Praetorian Guard for a sci-fi game or something like that. Lots of historical miniatures as well. They often dip into gaps in plastic ranges, and they originally started their Grand Epic Scale or something like that it's called, and there was some historical stuff to start with. I think it was Ashigaro kind of, this is my area of history I know nothing about, part of the world I know nothing about as well, but then these came up this last week, and this is their Grand Epic Scale fantasy, and it looks like orcs. So obviously we've talked in the past for Middle Earth reasons, looking at sort of playing 10mm games and things, and yeah, if you're looking to play Battle of Five Armies, that kind of thing, and want to do it on the cheap, haven't been able to get hold of the miniatures, the rules are out there, the updated rules for Warmaster and things are out there, and wow, fantastic stuff. They look really, really cool.
Very cool. I like the chubby little one with the two swords. He's cool.
Yeah. They're going to be good quality, and they're in little strips of 5. They're just really, really cool stuff. And the next thing that was something you brought up, so we'll have a little look at that as well. So we have Warcrow.
Yes.
So I know nothing about this. So I've just got it on the screen.
I only know a little bit more. Basically, Henry Cole Paint, he painted one relatively recently, and he showcased a bit of the book as part of that video as well. They're sort of a larger scale. They're more classic fantasy archetypes of orcs. So they're the sort of probably slightly more Warcraftian style. I'm assuming you're putting up a picture of what's going on at the moment.
On the main webpage, we got to some orcs now. Yep. Oh wow, yeah, they are amazing.
They're really cool models. Apparently the Sirecast, but really good quality.
Well, Sirecast is improving all the time, and it is our future. We just have to wait for it to get there.
But I'm really interested in the models. They look really cool. Some of the other factions look cool. To be fair, I've not looked massively into it.
Yeah,
there are sort of, I believe, dwarves and elves included as well as human factions, but principally the orcs, which are sort of a barbarian culture.
Yeah,
in that world, which has been quite well realised from the flick through the book that Henry did as part of the cult video. It looks really interesting. It looks like a slightly more, I hesitate to use the word, adult version of that World of Warcraft aesthetic.
Yeah, I can see that.
Which, apologies to any WoW fans out there, but WoW does have a very highly stylized, almost cartoony approach to it, which is fine. It's great. And if that's what you're into, that's fantastic. But I do like these because they seem a little bit more grounded, and the models look great fun. So
I'm just flicking through them now as you're talking, and the presentation of them is absolutely stunning. It's a very, very, I know nothing about the game, that I have heard of it. It's just making me wonder now whether it's It's very, very cool.
And I've seen sort of the box and bits and pieces like that from a couple of other bits and pieces, because there's naturally I watched that video, so YouTube knows, because it knows all, and little extra bits and pieces we've reviewed XYZ have popped up, and it does look really interesting. Sort of relatively low model count skirmish game.
Incredibly impressive. It just goes to show, doesn't it, that what a terribly hard market it is at the moment to get your game kind of noticed beyond the noise of Games Workshop, really, because
but even a company
I've heard of it, but there's so much. Yeah, even companies that big, with beautiful looking miniatures, really stunning looking miniatures, and
I'm really quite hoping that actually does pick up, to be honest.
Yeah, it would be amazing. It just really goes to show. And we I don't know if we talk. I don't think if we've talked about this on a hobby hour. I think we might have talked about this on the last one about Steamforged Games having War Machine.
Yeah,
and there's a bit more news recently around that. I haven't prepared anything for this. I've just thought of it, but I was chatting to a couple of people I've known back from the time when I used to play it in second edition, and that game was big then. And we've go off on a magic tangent, but
it even got a foothold in Peterborough, which has always been like GW, a proper stronghold for GW. Nothing ever really else survives here apart from GW. Even Heresy, which was huge here, has died off. It's very 40k now. But yeah, War Machine was being played here.
It was huge. It was huge, and it was kind of pre-Age of Sigmar taking off, and Age of Sigmar's probably filled that gap now. And you look at, and I've talked about this before on this show, I know, but Age of Sigmar now, with its objective markers mapped out on the maps and things, kind of is what War Machine and Hordes was, is edging that way to that style of game.
It feels the answer to it, doesn't it? It was Games Workshop clawing back the people they've
clawed
lost.
It back, and that's got to have some other reason. There's going to be lots of other reasons, but we've gone through other editions of War Machine since then. It's clearly not as popular.
I'd say,
and I've looked
poor
into
quality
it,
models
and I
in
can't believe
metal.
how much of it has changed, but almost gone as well. So much of it's just removed. I mean, we're going to talk a little bit later on about legacying things. That's clearly happened in War Machine and Hordes as well, but I couldn't believe how unrecognisable it was in some areas. Signar and Kador still look recognisable as still some of the famous characters that I knew about. So War Machine for me, I'm going to wait for the new 2-player starter box to come out, and I'll probably pick that up just for a nostalgia thing. And it's a fun little game to play. What happens beyond that, I don't know. But it's definitely changed. It'll be interesting to see what's Steam for. But the point I was making, really, or started to try and make, was that if a game that was kind of almost pushing Games Workshop, you looked at the worldwide sales rankings back during that period I was talking about. There was a period where War Machine and Hordes was like number 3 behind 40k. And something else, whatever the other thing was at that time. And these semi-big games just disappear if they don't have Games Workshop on there. Fantasy Flight have probably changed the market a little bit, but even they are shutting down games like X-Wing now because the market changes so often, and Games Workshop still controls so much, even as a Modi, I suppose, as it is now, with a license like Star Wars, still struggles to kind of corner that market. So it's even harder for games like Warcrow, as beautiful as the miniatures are, with a company that already has a good following for his other game, to kind of go, right, well, what about this skirmish game? Because it's going to be right in that Age of Sigmar, War Machine and Hordes, Star Wars, whichever version, whichever flavour. It's a difficult market to get into. But
I don't know how much it costs. That may be the decider, the cost point. If it's relatively low, and Seacast suggests it probably is compared to hard plastic GW.
Yeah.
Given that there's also the GW tax. I mean, I'm not saying that GW models aren't worth it. I'm not even touching that, but
it's more expensive.
They are more expensive. So if the models are lovely, which they clearly are, they're at a keen price point and the game's good, there's no reason why it shouldn't thrive.
Yeah.
Apart from GW.
Oh, exactly. So other news, I suppose we got I'm not going to prep this or go into too much detail because people are more familiar with this fair bit of news out of Games Workshop, I suppose. We've got a new kill team. We've got these Scions jet sort of jump troops. I was never a huge fan of the Scion models, but these look a little bit better, to be honest with you. They look a little bit more, a little bit slimmer. So I won't be getting kill team, but I might pick up a squad of those to add to my little fun Astra Militarum force at some point. But it looked cool.
And the Vespids as well.
Vespids, they look again. I'm guessing
that's been a model that's been crying out for replacements. So I'm glad they've done.
The old one did look a little bit, So
they didn't look good when they first came out, let alone now.
I wasn't really around I wasn't around. I was on my break of gaming when Tau came out, but
they look like they've been designed by trying to think of there's a particular toy manufacturer like Hasbro done them.
It does.
They wouldn't have looked out of place in Bucky O'Hare, in all honesty with you. And that's not all. I mean, I love Bucky O'Hare as a kid, but I don't want models designed that way.
I wouldn't be attracted to attracted, probably not the right word, but drawn to the aesthetics of them anyway. So even in artwork, it's just not that. It wouldn't be a faction I go, oh, I want to play that. So there's that on top of it also being an older style sculpt. So I've never really had any strong opinions on it either way, but I can understand they definitely look a little bit old and tired, and it's nice to see them replaced. I'll come back to a bit later, but Jacob's got some Tau, and I don't think they will have, I don't think he'll be enthused about adding those to his Tau because he likes Tau for what Tau look like, I think. But they look cool.
At least they've incorporated some of that, though. They've put the face mask and stuff on some of them.
They look like
they look more subsumed.
Yeah, it makes sense, I suppose. But it looks a decent enough thing, and and it's I haven't played Kill Team, but I've bought Kill Team. Again, something I'll talk about when I'm talking about my own hobby. The idea of getting my boys playing. I've made a video. People would have seen the video on it probably anyway, but the measurements for Kill Team are quite. I don't know if you've ever seen it, Dan, but they tried to get rid of numbers and inches and
triangle
equate to triangle and circle and color code it. What all you'd end up doing was in your head was looking at what that was and then converting it back to inches.
I think it's still a shrink wrapped Kill Team in that little box thing here. I think there's still a rule book in there. I did have a load of the Beastmen as well, but I wasn't going to do anything with them and sold them on.
I don't blame you. But anyway, looks like looking at the pictures of the measuring tools you get in the box, they've got numbers on now that relate to 2 inches. So I imagine that they've got rid of that one. It was a fun idea, but one that just complicated it for people. But that looks pretty cool. And there's been loads and loads of Warhammer the Old World stuff. Really picked up the pace, and again, I'm conscious. And Blood Angels, which was slightly and what else? Imperial Agents as well, which was controversial.
Let's not get started on.
I don't mind the Blood Angels, but again, I've had that conversation with a couple of people, and apparently they're not popular either. But
I don't understand that. I mean, Lamartis is stunning, although I cannot unsee what has been said about him now, unfortunately, with his mouth.
I haven't seen that.
Pulp Fiction.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Unfortunately, I cannot unsee that now. But Astraph's really cool. The problem I've got with Blood Angels, and actually I was having this conversation with someone, I think it was early today or yesterday, is they've gone a little heavy on the whole, yes, they're Blood Angels, but they've gone really heavy on the angel and the vampire aesthetic, which I get, that's what they are.
Yeah.
But because I'm old and because I was around for Angels of Death for second edition, when they were a Codex chapter, and so were Dark Angels. They just had a few tweaky bits. They were still Codex chapters. Like Blood Angels were supposed to be really good at what they did and have this really, proud bearing. But yeah, they had a dark secret. They were a little bit vampiric. Watch The Crow too often, and occasionally in 1s and 2s they go completely mental. And that was quite cool. I really liked it. And then it's gone a little far. I think probably when the Sanguinor and the Sanguinary Guard first turned up, and then we started getting Librarian Dreadnoughts, and it all started to get a little bit silly. for me.
Yeah,
That's when I kind of parted ways with the Red Angels aesthetic. But for second edition, they were super cool. Like and Space Hulk, Vengeance of the Blood Angels.
I think I prefer close to Codex style as well. I think that would be, but I'll get why they're doing it, I suppose. But
I always wanted to do a Heresy army, literally just Blood Angel Tactical Marines, just like a battle company like Ralderon. Just like they've got the floor, but they've mastered it and they're just really good at what they do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as I said, I think they seem pretty good releases. I know the Cortez model for the agents has not been very well received. I'm ambiguous towards it, to be honest with you. I'd like to see it painted.
There's bits of it I like, bits of it I don't. The hip armor's strange. It does make him look like he's got his trousers pulled too high up.
Yeah.
But I quite like the eagle. And some of the design notes on the armor are fine. It looks like power armor for a human, whereas most power armor for a human has still retained certain Astartes aesthetics to it up to this point.
Yes.
Or it's just looked like plate armor that they put a power pack on. It's the first one that actually looks like power armor for a human.
Yeah, that's really. That's a really good point.
Which is interesting, and it's a different design cue that I don't think we've seen before. And yes, maybe the hips are a bit odd, but other than that, I do quite like it.
Yeah. Oh, as I say, I want to see someone else paint it, but wasn't too fussed about it. I mean, there's so much stuff come out recently. There's been a clear outpouring of Age of Sigmar 4 has gone. Everyone else that's been waiting to have their stuff released, including SDS, which has suddenly been allowed to release all their stuff because we've got new Necromunda out as well, haven't we, since we last recorded? I won't go into all in detail.
I think we spoke about the Spirus, didn't we, last time?
We may have done.
I think we'd just seen the first sort of glimmers of it, and there's now the rest of the Spirus as well.
The actual pre-order went up, didn't it? Since we've recorded though, because it was at the same. It was the same time as Dwarves, wasn't it? The same day, wasn't it? The same day as one of the Dwarves.
Yes. First wave,
it was waiting for ages for something, and then it all comes at the same. Because you and I,
because load of Legion.
I wonder which one will be first
as well.
Yep, yeah, loads and loads of stuff, and it was basically SDS. You're now allowed to put your stuff out because there was clearly a lot of stuff that was held back.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm not going to do too much detail about it because I've done lots of videos talking about it. So if you are interested in it and you are here to watch the Hobby Hour or Out of the Frying Pan, and that is why you're watching this, and you are interested in my thoughts on the old world stuff, there's quite a few videos in the last 2 or 3 weeks me talking about the state of the game system, from it's taking a long time for Dwarves to come out to wow, suddenly everything's changed overnight. Really, it feels so much stuff has been released and the Warriors of Chaos announced.
And the terrain's cheap,
and the terrain as well. Yeah, it's I've got some.
I say cheap.
Oh, it's
but cheap. It's a lot less.
2 of those plastic hills, £26. That's RRP. That's so cheap.
We agree on that. Someone will be straight in the comments going, "All right, when God were a lad, we had that for £1.50."
Yeah, these are big, hard plastic. There's a lot of plastic in those. Yeah, I'm having just used one for some dwarf terrain recently. I'm really surprised. But anyway, loads and loads of stuff. But I've covered most of that to death in videos, and I'm conscious of that. So if you're interested in the old world stuff, just go and have a look because I've covered all the new releases and some of my thoughts on that in quite a lot of detail. So aside from all the news, then. What have you been up to, Dan?
Well, now on to the olds. Obviously, I'll touch on one thing before we go too far. I went to see Alien Romulus on Friday. I'm a huge Alien fan.
Me too.
You can't really see it, but I've got a massive, great big poster right here. Mondo screen print, hand numbered one. Love Aliens. Didn't love that. I won't spoil anything for anyone, just in case you do want to watch it. I'm sure some people will enjoy it. The aesthetics are wonderful. The film goes absolutely bananas, and no. And I so wanted to love it. I really wanted to love it. I've kept the faith every time they release an Alien movie, and I've always been burnt. I think the closest it's ever really come for me, and it's probably going to evoke some comments. I enjoy Prometheus, but it's not an Alien movie. It's Alien adjacent. It's a very good sci-fi movie that happens to sit in a very similar universe.
Yeah.
I
like something about all of them I've seen. I've not seen the latest one. I've liked something about all of them and enjoyed them for being alien-based things, but there's definitely an order of preference and of quality as well. They have different.
I lay
some of
you
them
down
aren't
a
just
challenge, Stu.
entertainment. Yeah.
For next time, you have got to watch Alien versus Predator 2 Requiem, and you have to find one good thing to say about it.
Yeah, I've not watched that. I'm not classing that in my.
It took me 3 goes to finish that movie.
Yeah, I won't be watching.
I was determined to finish it, and it took 3 attempts.
Yeah, I'll leave that. I'll leave that where it is, I think.
But aside that, because it's been a little while, actually I've done some stuff. So people may remember I've been picking up the History of Middle-earth books as they've been coming out, because they were rebinding them, redoing them with the sort of more recent spine cover art and stuff, the Alan Lee stuff. Really pretty. Really,
looks
really
very
pretty.
The image is on screen now, Dan, so everyone could see your collection all lined up in all its
Yeah,
glory.
they've all arrived now. The last one was released a week or 2 ago. I think it. Luckily, I was able to order it from HarperCollins, who have taken a lot better care of them than Waterstones ever did. I wasn't always very impressed with how they came packaged.
I had a shocking delivery from Waterstones as well in the past, and I've not bought from them much, but yeah, that came.
Although the worst I've ever had in terms of books delivery in recent years is Amazon, which is hilarious because they started doing books.
That doesn't surprise me.
They started as a bookseller. They forget their roots, and I mean, I think there's very few things in the world that are worse than destroying books. I have views people who turn corners or break spines on books. There's a special circle in hell invented for them, but but I've picked those up. They're all very beautiful. I'm going to go through and reread them all. Very excited about doing so.
Beautiful.
They are very cool, and I've built a Warriors of Chaos army.
You have.
A whole
one.
It
makes me chuckle at how similar that is to what I've built as well. Apart from they're going to have different loadouts, of course, but in terms of general size, it's almost exact. Unit filler in the same space in the Marauders unit. It's only the mounted Marauder horse that I've got dogs instead.
Well, anyone would think we started with 2 Vanguard boxes, right?
Yeah, anyone would think that. Yeah, crazy stuff, but it looks great, and I can't wait to see it all painted.
The models are very cool, although the Dark Oath are an interesting unit to try and rank, especially because they're on 25s and they're very, very, very dynamic. Would be the word I'd use.
Yeah.
The Marauder horse rank fine. Chaos Knights do not. No. I'm going to have to introduce some undulation in the terrain, which will help raise and lower bits.
I've had to do that. I've numbered mine, and even then, it's a bit.
Oh, I will do that. I've got plans. The bases, I've ordered the magnets. They can be set into the bottom, and I've ordered 2-part epoxy resin. So what I'm going to do is I've got the clear, so I'm going to number the base underneath with a paint pen.
Yeah.
Stick the magnet in, and then level off the base with the resin.
Nice.
So the base will be solid, so then I can drill into it to pin models to it and stuff. And it just gives it a bit more heft. And it'll lock the magnet in to stop it breaking off, which is also something that happens with hollow bottom bases. That's why I normally buy resin bases and then countersink them.
Yeah. Because
every time I was stuck magnets at the bottom of a normal base, they break off. Every single time.
Yeah, they do eventually.
So if I countersink them into the resin, or in this case, pour resin around them, they won't, or at least shouldn't do. I'll have to do something pretty wrong for that to happen.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's all built. I'm trying to remember. Again, this shows the quality of what we do. Excellent television. I'm trying to remember the order in which things have been loaded. You sent me a little list of. So the next thing up is the 54mm Anno model that was by Cult of Paint. I bought that 6 years ago, I think it was. In fact, I don't know how well you can see this. I have.
They can't see that.
Number 11.
All they can see is the image that's on the screen, Dan. Let me remove. Hang on. There we go. You show the people. There you go.
It's the first edition. It's the 11th one they ever sold, and I'm just painting it now, which is absolutely blooming criminal. But to be fair, some of it was because I was frightened to do it. I don't mind admitting that. I think there are models that you assemble and you go, "I'm not ready."
Yeah,
but I didn't want to ruin it. So yeah, she's coming on fine. Really lovely model. The cast on it's fantastic. It's James Tarrow did those.
Okay.
I remember back in the day. And he's obviously very good at what he does, and you can tell the actual quality of the cast on that is really, really good, really impressive. And then moving on, I actually started painting some of the bits of my Chaos army. Admittedly, I only started on the unit fillers so far.
So I think the size of the sword gives the first one away.
Yes, admittedly, that is only a normal size sword. As basically like a dirk for a Chaos warrior.
Yeah.
But he is tiny. He is actually smaller than a hobbit. I've actually put him next to the clear Bilbo,
right?
That Forge World did, and he's slightly smaller. Admittedly, the sword, but
I mean the clear Bilbo's on this picture now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that joke never gets old. It really doesn't. We might, but that joke never will. Really, really fun little model to do. And then I think the next one up here is little scrolly carrying dude. These are the familiars from the Warhammer Plus Limited Sorcerer.
Yes, that makes sense. When I saw this first, before I saw it zoomed in, it being so small, I did wonder if it was the hat from Harry Potter, but then I realised it's
it's the sort you out hat, not the sorting hat.
But it's cool. Amazing job on it. And these things are so tiny, people. This is appearing quite big on the screen, but without reference next to it, I don't think people appreciate how small these are unless they've seen them. You'd have to start putting a coin next to them down when you take a picture, just to show off your skills.
Oh, it always. I've done it once, and I felt like a proper fraud for doing it. It just feels like one of those. It goes beyond. It feels like showing off, and I don't like it.
Sometimes you just need to. I used to have when I first started doing epic stuff, unless I put a coin next to it, people didn't realise. They go, "Is that 28 mil?" And then you feel worse saying, "No, actually, it's not."
I just say thank you for the compliment. I'm no good at that kind of thing. As much as there's probably people who might be watching this going, "Shut up, you self-aggrandizing." What's it? I think next one up is the skeleton sign, the pointing skeleton from. He's from the Gargant set. I just picked him up online, and obviously it's the North marching, so it's the beginning of Asafar Call's great call for chaos. So where are they going? They're going to Prague. So
and just think in the old world timeline, that's about 24 years off where we've started in the old world timeline.
Yeah.
Which is probably how long it's going to take you to finish painting this up.
Yeah. Obviously I've not finished the bottom of that, the rocks, because I need to match that into the painting. Yeah. Well, I'll paint it to match, I think, and then I'll find a way of fitting it in. I don't know, because I'm going to airbrush a lot of the basing, I think, so I don't want to ruin that. I'll have to find a way to mask it off.
Yeah.
I can hand paint a lot of it.
Cling film is really good for the larger areas than just a little bit of tape around the bottom, rather than covering it all in tape. I use cling film quite a lot on larger areas. It just saves so much time.
I think that's going to be probably the way forward, but I'm going to it's going to be sort of tundra and steppes, so it's going to be sort of snow and ice and slush and various bits and pieces. Next up is the tiny rat with the tiny key. He's now he is minuscule. And I think that's from the Curse City set. So I'll be grabbing little bits and pieces. I've just ordered a load of crows, which are going to end up scattered around the army on the basing and stuff, and perching on banners and on shoulders of individuals. I'm going to work out how I'm getting them on, and I've ordered some of the carabine. Carabine, whatever people now. I still think it's carabine, but basically because that's what it said in the movie. And then after that, we've got the Bestigor Destroyer, which I found out that's his name. Which thank you once again, Tim. Don't know if people can see me, or it's just things on the screen, but I am
just putting my hands together. Thanks. On the screen at the moment, but awesome model. I love this. he's become. I've trimmed the ball off the end, and he's become the standard in my Marauder unit. And then stuck the ball back on the end afterwards on the top of the pole. But it's such a lovely model.
Yeah, it was good fun to paint. I did really enjoy it. I was looking forward to him. So, yeah, very, very cool model. Then it's a book with a sword in it, or book with a dagger in it, which is off the...
With teeth.
With teeth, which they were horrible to paint. There's even gums on it, which was a nightmare to try and paint in. But that's from underneath the foot of the limited sorceress,
right?
Or sorcerer, somewhat ambiguous. But I wanted to keep that because it's cool. But I didn't want their foot on top of it. So I managed to trim it off and basically cleanly, so I could the foot and the book were fine, and it's going to sit on a base.
Nice.
It's just little bits and pieces to dot about. And then I painted the little sorcerer chap or chapess or them from the hilariously expensive brand chappies or chapesses set. £47.50. Still absolutely blooming criminal. Managed to use some of the other models there, but not the horse,
right?
The Marauder horse person, which I'll find someone will either want it or I'll find a use for it later. But all the models are really cool, and I've found a use. I turned the lady with the spear into one of the banner bearer from my Marauder unit. She came out all right for that. And then the final one is I made a start last night on the Chaos Ogre. Managed to get the skin and the face and stuff done on that. Really, really lovely model to paint. I'm still quite stoked on the little conversion job I did on it. It looks right. And it's been nice to get some paint on that because, as most people in the UK will know, the weather's been a bit temperamental in the last week or so. And then before that, I had some time off, but I did actually go and do stuff.
Yeah.
So
I love what you've done with the eyes there, and is it tattoos under the eyes, or it just or sort of blacked out? It's like
anyway. It's like sort of a little bit sort of like Floki in Vikings. So
yeah.
Sort of I don't know what they used. It probably wasn't woad, was it? But it's like charcoal,
it wasn't mascara,
basically.
That's for sure.
Yeah, it wasn't mascara, but it was charcoal
mascara,
under the eyes.
But it looks right. I wouldn't have thought to do that, and it's just perfect on that miniature. Really, really cool.
I wanted it to look kind of menacing. Because it's got that glower to it. The miniature. I mean, it's a cracking mini. You forget how many quality fantasy miniatures were released around that period, sort of 8th edition era. There was some phenomenal stuff. Really super cool, because that's based off the Ogre Tyrant miniature they did. And they all passed me by. I never even knew they existed because I wasn't paying attention to fantasy back then. I think I was deep in heresy by that point.
It's easily done though, isn't it? It's really easily done.
And this has been one of the coolest things about doing some of this stuff for the old world is going back and revisiting so many of these miniatures that I never knew existed. Some of them have cost me a fortune to get hold of, admittedly, but some of them are still available as part of AOS, and so they're really, really good fun. I think that's about it for what I've been up to in terms of hobby and stuff. I read the first omnibus of the End Times books because they released those within the last couple of months, and I'm a ways through the first story, the first book in the second omnibus, which is it's about Malekith,
right?
Not Malarian.
And how have they grouped those? Because I've read the 5 main novels in that series, or listened to them on Audible. So the omnibus, do you get the main novel and all the little shorts around it? Is that
you get? Yeah, because the first one is Rise of Nagash, Fall of Altdorf, and then the corresponding short stories and stuff that are around
Fall
it.
of Altdorf is the second main novel as well. So there's 2 main novels in it. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, 2 main novels in the first anthology, and then what it does is it includes there's the short story with Manfred and this first set of his prisoners, and then there's the other short story which is Grand Theologianist going to Sylvania.
Interesting.
And then there's the fall of Marienburg, essentially, and that's one of the other short stories which precedes. Unfortunately, they don't put them in the right order. That's the only thing I would say about that book, which is a right pain in the backside about it. Was you get the Grand Theogenist, Volkmar, and then you get Rise and Nagash, which is fine, but you'd have been better off having the short story for the other Manfred one, off like either immediately after that or between the Grand Theogenist and the Rise and Nagash. But that comes after the fall of Altdorf. And then the fall of Marienburg, which is supposed to happen before the fall of Altdorf, which is to do with the Glottkin.
Right.
So what it should have been was, Volkmar, then the prisoner story, Rise and Nagash, the Marienburg one, and then fall of Altdorf. And that just doesn't happen. So you've kind of had some bit of sport. You already know what's coming. And I think
weird,
that was just a bad editing call, but very enjoyable. And so far, the one with Malekith has been I'm only 7 or 8 chapters into it, and I don't know why I love reading about Dark Elves. I love reading about old school elves in general. The Sundering series was phenomenal. Which was, I think it was just called. I think it was Malekith. It started off with, and then it was Shadow King, and then Calidor. Those books were fantastic, and then the War of the Beard one was really good as well.
I see.
Those old Time of Legends ones were fantastic.
That'll be good. Did Gav do that as well?
I can't remember.
It'd be interesting.
But really good. I'm enjoying those. I have to admit, as awful as it is, I am somewhat enjoying that period of history still a little more than some of the stuff in the old world. But they haven't really fleshed it out enough yet, because Lord of the Lance is out. But
what's the only thing?
I haven't read it. Yeah, and obviously I haven't got my what's it called, Arcane Journal yet for Warriors, so I haven't really had much more fluff than's in the main rulebook.
Yeah. It's. I mean, I'll be doing something. I'll mention it now. I'm working on some lore videos for the old world as it is. I'm hoping to have one out. It will be out before people see this, probably, if it's gone to plan.
You said it now. It's gonna happen.
Well, it's going to happen, but it's about getting it finished and written.
Well, we've not actually mentioned when we're recording this, so you could hold this.
The plan is of when this is coming out. The other thing should have been out by then, so it's either, if it's not happened, I very much doubt it will still come out before this. I'm not going to hold this back for 2 months while I wait to do that. But the first one will be an overview, and then after that, I'll be taking the factions one by one. And the lore is
I'll have painted potentially 3 more miniatures by then. So
yeah, you probably will have. The lore's very, very good in each of the Arcane journals, but it's not huge and expansive. I think that's a fair thing to say. These are 48-page books, so there's not an awful lot added. There's a focus on a certain narrative element for each new book, but in terms of sort of wider history or something, we don't know yet. And I suppose Warhammer's always old world centric, and there's a clue in the name for it there. And I hope that when we meet Empire and we learn a little bit more around what's going on there, that'll give us a little bit more of an idea in that sort of wider sort of remit. So we will see, but I think it's going to take a little while for them to expand. They need some novels. They do need some Black Library novels. Yeah. Well, again,
even some shorts.
Since we last did a hobby hour, I've interviewed Gav, and I had him talking about dwarves on the channel, and from talking to him before the record, and he mentioned it pretty much in the video as well. He would love to, I'm sure, write some old. If Games Workshop, but Black Library went to him and said, "Gav, would you write us some dwarf old world stuff?" He'd say yes. So they've got to ask, I think, and you may well. And from interviewing Graham McNeil with Jordan on Jordan Sorcerer's channel when we read Lord of the Lance. Again, I think he'd love to do more. So these big name authors who had written before would want to do that, but it's all about the plans that Games Workshop has as a whole. I can't imagine it wouldn't sell, even to people who aren't playing, but in fact it might get more people back into it. It seems like a really strong marketing way, but I suppose the SDS game path and that side of the studio doesn't have the same power and clout probably to kind of be involved in decisions. I'm making massive assumptions, but that seems to follow with games and the amount of window they get to release their things and announce their things. They're smaller, which makes sense. But then I can imagine then that maybe they don't get brought up or aren't in the same number of meetings where Brett Library's there and they start talking about bigger strategies or how do we support this system. It's going to be the main studio things that may well have something to do with it as well. But anyway, back to you. Just talking about that. It was a poignant moment to bring it up, really.
Yeah, I'm just thinking who I'd like to write different books. I'd love to see Dembski Bowden do, Chaos or something. That might be quite cool. Or if they ever decide to bring all of the legacy factions in, watching him or maybe Mike Brooks or someone writing Dark Elves or, there's a whole lot of cool stuff to be done there. See Werner do Skaven.
There's some good new authors as well, so it'd be interesting to see whether they would get some. I should imagine you would have new authors doing it, and I haven't read loads.
Yeah, Darius Hinks is quite good.
Well, I read one of his back in the day. One of his. It's like a standalone Empire one, and it was fine. It wouldn't be anything that I kind of write home about. Obviously, I recently read Victoria Hayward, mentioned on the last show, Victoria Hayward's Death Wilder
novel. She did the Katz-chan thing.
Yeah. It's really well written, so I would trust her writing style. I think she would write, especially humans, very, very well. Whether she has any passion or knowledge of the Warhammer world, I'm sure, if she's a professional writer, she could learn enough, but whether she'd want to, I don't know. But there are definitely good enough writers in this stable. They don't have to be the old stalwarts, but yeah, if I could pick Graham McNeil and Dan Abnett and Gav to come and write stuff for their perspective. I mean, I've just read Riders of the Dead for an extra.
Oh, great old book.
So Jordan and I have just read that for a special edition, an extra hobby. The book club, which is not going to be out yet. It won't be out by the time you're watching this. So we've read it and we've talked about it already. But so I won't go into any details apart from I loved it. The book's amazing.
Yeah, a bunch of that stuff that Dan did was really good. So he did the Riders of the White Wolf one as well, which was really good. There was some really good stuff around that time. And then the old Matthias Tallman Witch Hunter stuff was really good. I used to love a lot of the old fantasy books. Obviously, Shadow. Malus Darkblade. Loved Malus Darkblade, which is again Abnett.
Yeah.
And to finish, the novelization of those cartoons was phenomenal. Really good set of books.
Yeah,
although because I think Abnett helped with. He did most of the comic and then some of the novelization. The novelization was finished off by someone else. I can't remember now. I've not read them in years, but they were really, really good. I just like to call one Spite, proper cool. But I think we've digressed sufficiently on that one.
Absolutely.
But I've been doing some reading because I can. I don't even have to use my finger anymore. It's great. What have you been up to?
So I'm always conscious of trying not to repeat too much stuff that's gone on in videos. But I suppose the dwarves have finally arrived, and I've made more content to do with that. So that's been part of my sort of personal hobby. I've started work. In fact, we've got it behind me here. Started work on my King on.
I was about to ask if you
no video for this. I'm just enjoying it. I've decided not to make a video and just paint it bit by bit when I can and do it for me.
I am sure you'll do a wonderful job, but there is a very good.
Well, that's another reason. Yeah,
the Henry one.
Henry's video is fantastic. Yeah. So I just thought, shall I do a video? It felt like a big video to do it all. Because if it's one guy, I'd have probably done it, but I'm just repeating techniques that I'd have already shown in some of my other dwarf videos anyway. So those people who are waiting for it,
If you can get Ungrim though, it'd be worth you doing a video for.
Well, I'll come on to that in a moment. I do have him. Whether it'll be, again, I've got a plan for a video there as well, which I'll come on to in a moment, because I've been planning that this week and some today actually. So I've been chipping away at that a little bit, as I say, working on some lore and stuff in the background for it. But yeah, lots of old world stuff really, and it's been a summer holiday, so I've been busy with the boys, getting the boys playing some 40k. Again, there is a video for this when I talk about getting my boys started in gaming, and Harry's 5, so he just I wouldn't even be trying unless he was asking. And Jacob's 9 and played old world, so he can definitely handle it. But he, as much as he likes it, he wants to play stuff that's a little bit easier. So I picked up some 40k stuff. And the idea was I was going to play some Kill Team, and I just decided that Kill Team was still going to be too complicated. So I basically stripped down 40k. I
watched the video. As odd as that may seem, I do try and watch things. One, it shows support, it improves the algorithm, like watch and like, and to be honest, it's sometimes a good thing to just, I'll be honest, unless it's a video I actively want to watch because of the subject matter, I put it on in the background while I'm working.
I appreciate that.
Every little helps and all that kind of thing. But there was some really interesting points about that, and I think they could be transposed into introducing people who have no real knowledge of what we do into it.
Yeah.
There's still parallels, and it is interesting. It's about when you talk about training people, you understand people's learning styles, and I think actually there is a degree of that in this hobby. It's actually usually a failure to teach isn't the fault of the student, it's the teacher, and it's understanding your audience. And I think there's definite parallels in what you said in that video to
You've
introducing
been on a course
anyone.
This week, haven't you?
No, I haven't. I know personal life thing. I might as well talk about it. I have been accepted on a course now. I applied for it. It's business funded. It's a degree level course that I'll be doing over the next 2 years as part of my work, which is pretty cool. And that will be included in that. But luckily, I have a bit of a head start because I've been a manager for a while now. Cool. And it's the kind of thing that if you want to remain a manager and have staff who remain around, or colleagues around for more than 5 minutes, you best learn.
Yeah, absolutely. So, that's my past life doing all that kind of stuff. Yeah. I absolutely. You'll learn loads of stuff that will kind of transfer into the game and stuff. But yeah, so I made a video about it. But for those, in short, for those that haven't seen it or aren't going to watch it, just stripping. I decided they were interested in playing with Space Marines. Well, my youngest was interested in painting Space Marines, and I could get them cheap. My eldest would happy to play with anything. Literally, it's 5 intercessors each. You're taking what would have been a kill team and swapping it to 40k. Alternate activations, individual models rather than whole units activating, but other than that, following the 40k turn sequence, and then just using the 2 wound chart. And it's just really simple because everything else is on the card of what they need to roll. What do you need to? And my 9-year-old gets it straight away. And he just, with old world, I'd have to talk him through everything. He'd make his decisions about where he's moving, but essentially I'm almost playing against myself. With this, he can make his own decisions. And they loved it, had a great time. Jacob was sort of really excited about it, and he's now got a Tau combat patrol, which we've already started painting. And then for his birthday, his 10th birthday in November, I'm going to take him up. We're going to hire a table, and I'll the Astra Militarum combat patrol that I've got as well, that I'm doing for a bit of a fun painting project. We'll go up and play some games, and nice simple games, because as much as I wanted to play old world, at the end of the day, 40k is easier to get started with. So there's that, and I'm sure that from that he'll end up wanting to play Age of Sigmar as well, and I won't, if he wants to do that, then I'll use that as an excuse to, again, same thing. It'll be Vanguard, that kind of, whatever the new Spearhead, the new version of it. Right now, I've not touched that, but I know in the future he'll be like, oh, I really like this playing 40k, but these models look nice as well. And if it means that, because Harry wants to join in with everything, but can't quite the same way. Hopefully Harry likes Stormcast, because again, he can paint those nice and easy, and Harry loves doing his painting. So we did that. In fact, this week we've been doing some more hobby. We played Hero Quest, the new version. We only went for the first mission, but the 3 of us did, and we got the art. So those of you who don't know now, there's an app So I had the app on the iPad, and it takes the part of the Games Master, and it just takes you through. So it tells you, it basically, you move as normal on the board, you'd roll all your dice, you track everything. But then after you've moved, you tell the iPad with your finger where you've moved the miniatures to, then you press Zargon's turn, and then he moves all of the monsters and stuff, and you just have to do all the dice rolling. So yeah, it takes you through it. So you could play it solo.
Oh, nice one.
So you could sit there and play it solo with all the things. I haven't done that yet, but one evening I may well do that. Now, Harry enjoyed it as well. You know, it took us 3 hours to do one mission because of the boys. I think Jacob and I together one evening could probably do it a little bit quicker, and that might be what we do, is because there's 14 missions in that initial starter, and I've got one of the expansions as well. But it was really good fun, a really nice thing to play, and you can get your kids playing it no problem. And because it's on the iPad, Jacob ended up managing the iPad, so he was doing they both use iPads and things. So Jacob was moving them on the iPad, pressing next turn, doing all of this. And by the end of the game, he knew how to play it as well, which is far more than I did at 9 when I had Hero Quest. I had no idea, because reading the rules wouldn't go in. But because it's kind of teaches you how to do it on the app, you don't even need to read the rule book, because you can have it demonstrate each part to you. It's really, really simple. So you definitely, for those of you who have had it in the past or watched it or want to know what to get your kids involved in, that's a really good one now. If you've got a tablet, if you've got an iPad, download the app. Was free. And then the game just takes you through it. It means you can play with your kids as well, so you can be part of the party, and you could help them with their decision making. Maybe, should we go in this room, or maybe we shouldn't go there, like that, or maybe the barbarian should go first, sort of thing, rather than the wizard or something. But it was loads of fun. I've took lots of pictures, which I've not shared on this, but I'll probably put those up a little short or something like that. But other than that, yeah, I've been chipping away at all my projects really, but I have been planning my next dwarf project. So I'm looking at so we got the Arcane Journal now, and I've been looking at the clan list, the way to have a Slayer list, essentially, using Ungrim and using the clan list. So I wanted to do a Slayer list. It won't be particularly competitive, but using the fun miniatures, the Doom Seekers and the Goblin Hewer, which bizarrely it's a mercenary. I've need to send that off as an FAQ. It's a mercenary, but under Ungrim's rules, all the other things. So the Doom Seekers become a normal 0 to 4 slot, but the Goblin Hewer stays as a mercenary. Apart from when you have the Grand Army, then it's normal. So I'm not quite sure why that is. It feels like that should be non-mercenary for Ungrim, but hopefully that gets FAQ.
I'm still not sure about having that in the army at all, because obviously when it was around, it was created by someone who they've conspicuously left the model out of the box, obviously.
They've covered that anyway. Apparently that was disputed. It was disputed. And no one knows who actually invented it, and there's a big argument in the Engineers Guild about it, and he took credit for it at a certain point, which he's known to in the past. And because of that, no engineer will now touch it.
Now he's dead.
They have.
That's what it is.
No engineer will now touch it, and the only people that will use it are Slayers. So I love it. The lore, that's a fun bit of lore. You can, but
it's a cool model.
Again, that law underlines more why it should be allowed in the mini sort of sub-Slayer army, which you can have if you have Ungrim as your king. But anyway, I'm not going to put the list on the screen, but I will share this. Oh no, it's not the right size because I moved the window to my second screen. There we go, it's the right size now. So Dan can't see this, but the Vulcan Flame Seekers, Dan, are a Warcry warband. I probably should have shared that web page with you.
Do you need them? I think I may have them.
Oh, I need some more. I've ordered some.
Yeah, I think I may have them. I will have to look up the models, but I swear because I've got Mologs mob still kicking around downstairs.
Okay.
So I think I've got those.
So you can't see what I'm talking about, but the viewers obviously can. You get I've got 2 sets of these on the way, but I'm ideally I need some more of the normal guides, because when it comes to Warcrow Warbands, you always get a couple of more specially character guys, don't you? And then they're obviously all unique sculpts, but I need the normal dudes more. And what I'm going to be using them as is hammerers. So Ungrim can go in a Slayer unit, or he can go in hammerers. And I want this. First of all, I looked at just doing pure Slayers, but you end up with a really limited list that's not really very playable. But I thought, well, how can I still get visuals of a kind of a Slayer looking list, but then also bring in some different miniatures and things like that. So he can be in a hammerer unit, so he's going in some hammerers, but rather than using the normal hammerer models, I thought that I would use these guys. And when we're talking about the kind of the normal dudes,
I just realised I don't have the Warcry Warband. I have the Underworlds ones, the Chosen Axes, I believe.
Oh, I don't even know which ones those are, but we can discuss that, because I need some normal fighty dudes to fill out my hammery unit.
Well,
but
they look a bit more pimped. They got
pimped,
like hats.
Okay.
And bigger axes.
Okay. Well, the axes are going. The axe heads are coming off anyway and being replaced with hammer heads. And I'm going to be putting the shoulder pads that I didn't use on mine, because I wanted them to look more old school. We're going to be sticking them on as well. And the idea is that they're just going to be hammers in terms of the rules. But Ungring himself he's kind of conflicted, because he's got the Slayer Oath, but then he can't go and fulfill it because he's also a king of the hold and needs to make sure the hold is looked after and ruled. And I thought it'd be fun if his guard, so his hammerers, which are basically the king's guard, are his most closely sort of guarded bodyguard, are made up of hammerers that have got the same problem. So they've had to take the Slayer Oath, but they're also, their first duty is to protect him. So I thought it'd be really fun to kit bash them out of these and some other hammerer bits to make them look half hammerer, half Slayerish. So they fit in with the theme of the army. But the rest of the army is basically 2 goblin hewers, a big unit of, I say big, a unit of about 20 slayers, and 3 doom seekers, an anvil. And that's the other thing with these, because I bought a couple of these kits, the characters in them, I'm going to convert to be the crew of the anvil as well. So I've got my anvil, and they're all magnetized on there. So I'm going to take them off, and when I play this list, I will swap them out for a room lord that looks a little bit more Slayerish, and then the guard for that look a bit more Slayerish as well. So
see if you can get the chap on the big dragon. You might be quite cool.
Yeah, I'm not buying a big. I'm trying to be.
Oh no, but you might be able to get the
bit on
the
his
dude
own
separately.
Yeah, maybe there's enough cool stuff in there where I'll show you the individual ones. I mean, later on offline, so I don't want to turn that into a massive.
Incidentally, as part of the Rise of Nagash book, there's a bit where Ungrim's army actually ends up going in to try and get to Sylvania.
Yeah.
To stop what's going on without ruining spoilers. And it kind of goes into his head about him being annoyed that he can't fulfill his oath because he's got a duty to his clan. That's actually a really good little subsection of the book. He basically ends up like beating up a ton load of beastmen. He end up losing, 80% of his army, but they some proper crumping, which is like a really cool little passage of the book. Actually, it's probably one of my favourite bits.
Perfect. Yeah. Absolutely. It sounds very cool. So that will be a video anyway. So you talked about Ungrim video. The video is going to be painting the whole lot because it's not going to be that big an army, not that much to paint as such.
Are you going to do tattoos?
I'll paint some, yeah. But it'll be one of those.
I don't think I've seen
videos.
An Ungrim painted with tattoos yet, and he's supposed to have them.
Yeah, I will be doing some tattoos. So it'll be one of those project-y style painting videos where it's not. I talk in a better way, maybe a slightly more scripted way, about what I was just trying to describe there and what I'm trying to do with it, rather than just be an individual painting tutorial, because those bigger videos tend to be viewed by more people, so to speak. But that's pretty much it. I've started working on So I was given the terrain that's just gone up for pre-order by my next door neighbour, Jeff, who runs KV Forge YouTube channel. So I think I've showed that I mentioned that a couple of shows ago, but I was given the basically 2 45 mana kits. I've had them for about 3 months or so now. I haven't done much with them. So I've started working on those this last week as well for a future video. And that's it really. So lots of stuff going on behind the scenes. Right then, I think we should take a little break, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about all of the Middle-earth strategy battle game news. Miniature Realms is proudly sponsored by Baron of Dice, premium wargaming dice. Over 500 styles, over 4,000 customer reviews. Welcome to the best dice on the planet. And we're back, and this is the out of the frying pan part. So let's talk about Middle-earth. Dan, what's going on with Middle-earth? Lots happening.
Well, we finally got our Angmar book.
We did.
That's and there's apparently a new edition coming, but we'll come to that. Angmar first.
Angmar first, yeah. Let me put up the article, I suppose, the Warcom article, which announced the Rise of Angmar book. So follow along at home if you can. What do you want to discuss first, Dan? Do you want to look at the models? Do you want to go book? What are your thoughts?
I think a short preamble on timings, because obviously there's a lot of people who've clearly been upset by how close this will be to the new edition, although GW have said that there will be PDFs available as a get you buys for a little while once the book drops, as in the new edition drops, however long that'll be. They've not really specified, but I think it's the internet, so people love to be really upset and froth and rage and throw their underpants and all that kind of stuff. But if you really think about it, when did they drop Angmar dice? I know I bought some, not 2.5 years ago.
Yeah,
it's about 2 years, and the Plastic Witch King. So it begs to suggest that we should have had this not long after. So even worst case estimates, it should have been 18 months ago. Mm-hmm. Obviously, it's not news to anyone. Logistical issues at GW. Clearly, there's been something going on in the background with Middle-earth. The smart money would say license renewal. Mm-hmm. If I were GW, obviously, I wouldn't want to potentially release stuff for a short period of time. They're going to have to pull or apply resource to stuff that may not necessarily be around much longer. None of us know. I think it's a bit assumptive of anyone to assume they do know. But the smart money says that we should have had this a while ago, and it's been held for reasons that probably would be on GW's control, because they've already sunk the development time into all of this amazing stuff that we've got very quickly now they've released it or announced it. Like, there's so much stuff. It's clearly all been sat there for a considerable length of time. Chances are that book's probably been sat in a warehouse for 18 months.
There's been quite a few comments
not been leaked
on the groups, which I know you're not in the groups.
I deliberately avoid it now.
There's been quite a lot of comments,
I like having a
hobby. Popping up and saying, look, that book's been sitting in the warehouse. And we will know soon, because as soon as someone gets it, if they look at the date in it, it's going to give it away, isn't it? There's going to have.
I reckon it'll say 2023.
Yeah,
I'd be pretty convinced it says 20.
I
probably even 2022.
Right. Potentially,
but the thing is, it is what it is. I am, for one, happy to have it. I've been looking forward to it. The rumblings have been that way for a long time. It's pointed that way. To be honest, it's been written on the wall since they released the Witch King, the dice, and then Glorfindel.
Yeah.
The fact that those three things happened at that time suggested an Angmar book, purely because that Fornost is where they obviously Glorfindel made the prophecy that no man shall kill him. Obviously, Arwen finishes the job at the Pelennor. It's been leading towards that for a long time. It's an era that's been interesting. When they first started showing some little glimpsy images, I thought, because obviously Aragorn or Elisar is wearing Erna's armor because he's the last king of Gondor. Is it him? Turns out it is. There's some really cool stuff coming. I wonder if we're going to see hobbits later in the heraldry for because they obviously went up to fight, and that's why the Barrow Downs are north of the Shire, because originally that was standing stones for parts of Angmar. All that really cool stuff. I'm really looking forward to see what's in the book. I think it'd be awesome. We both love a Middle Earth campaign book, whatever you want to call it, a source book. We love that. We've always enjoyed it. It'll be good for us to review. We could potentially try and play a game. You and I are both at Warhammer World next month.
Yeah,
maybe it'll be available so we can catch up over a pint in Bugman's or something over it.
Yeah, definitely
plan something in. That'd be quite cool. Because we should be at next CrackCon. We do need to have a chat about the painting competition for that.
We do,
Time is marching on. So there's potentially a possibility of us being able to play some of those scenarios, which I think would be really cool. So I'm really excited about it. As much as there are a lot of people who are rightfully or wrongfully having a whinge about the timing, it is what it is. It's up to you to make the most of it. I tend to find that the most people who are whinging about it are those who tend to be competitively minded. Right. I'm not saying that they do the game better than we do or anything else. As narrative players, people can play as they like. But I think the people who seem to see the least value in it are people of that mindset, i.e. the profiles that come from this aren't going to be useful for very long. How many games am I going to get out of them? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Fair enough. If that's your hobby, that's your hobby. But I think it's cool. It all adds to the Middle Earth. It all adds to the options to play our games and have some fun. And I always love it. So I'm excited for it. I will be pre-ordering the book on Saturday if I can get reception at a wedding. But it's the book. It won't sell out, and even if it does, it'll be back. So I don't have a problem with that. The amount of people who say no, I'm not buying that, tends to suggest I'm probably going to get one.
Yeah. I wouldn't really disagree with any of that. I think, like you said, we had the early signs quite a long time ago that would now seem to add up. Makes sense that this book was probably on the way. We had that long period of almost silence, nothing for the game. People got very upset. We've discussed that before on Hobby Hours. And they're never going to, well, it's unlikely that they're going to come out and explain what was going on, but I think it's a pretty reasonable assumption if you start doing the maths of when the last licenses were reviewed and things like that. And then we knew that the license had changed ownership as well, didn't it? The broader license. So we knew there could be some implications of that. And we also know, and we'll come on to it later, that this new film was coming out as well. So that, again, there's clearly been some negotiations around that. So I think there's been stuff going on in the background which they couldn't share with us. And it's probably very frustrating for the team working on the game, not being able to share those things. So I've got lots of, like I normally do, lots of sympathy with them. That there's a good chance, and we will know when, as I said, when we see the publishing date in that book, and we'll have an idea of how long it's been sitting around waiting for the go ahead for it to be released. I think in the more recent history, it's probably been delayed even further because of Age of Sigmar 4, because I imagine that was probably ready to go before that. So when it finally was allowed legally, I'm going to get, I don't know that for certain, but I'm going to guess legally that was the reason they were waiting for something to happen that meant they could start releasing stuff again. Then it's probably held back because of Age of Sigmar, along with lots of other things. By the looks of things, Necromunda, Warhammer the Old World, and pretty much anything else other than Age of Sigmar, especially if it was from the SDS side of the studio. So it must have been a very frustrating time. What I will say is I think people who have concerns and frustrations with it is also completely valid as well. Games Workshop have been very, very honest, and they've said in the article very, very clearly, we appreciate and we fully understand. I mean, those aren't the words, but that you can go and read the articles yourself. But they've been very clear, and they said that this will be going out of date very soon. We wanted to be honest with you, essentially. I'm praising here, but we want to be honest with you and say that up front before you go and spend money on it. That it's official use in terms of match play, and for this edition will be very, very short before that it goes out of date because of the new edition. So they've been very honest. I think that they expect and have to accept that there will be criticism, and that criticism isn't unfair, because Games Workshop have a choice whether they still decide to release this or whether to reskin it and pulp it. They've made a business choice to do that. You don't want people's work to go down the toilet, but they have made a choice, and then because of that, people have got every right to say, look, I don't think this is right. But again, the most basic, you choose. No one's forcing anyone to buy it, so you choose to buy it. I think it's regrettable and a real shame that it didn't get to come out when it was supposed to. And it is a bit of a shame, and it does mean that the edition, which has been a brilliant edition, does seem to end in a little bit of a sour, sad note, which is a bit of a shame.
Yeah.
But I will be buying it because I've got not just every other book in this edition, I've got every other book they've done up there. So, and I want to, and that's a choice I will make. You know what? And we talked about maybe playing it or something. Maybe we will. Depends what miniatures we've got. I'm not buying any of these new miniatures. As beautiful as they are, I'm not buying any of the miniatures for this book for myself because they're not factions I want to collect. And as tempting as it is, I won't be. I will be, and we'll come on to this, buy whatever the new edition is, but I will be buying this book to complete my collection. Whether I buy miniatures for it in the future, if they're available, I don't know. But I don't have any immediate hobby plans for those things that are in that book, especially with the new edition on the horizon. That'll be where my money goes. So maybe the news of the new edition, even for me, it makes it easier for me to decide, I'm going to buy this book and it's going to go on the shelf and I will use it hopefully at some point. Definitely adds to collection. And as beautiful as those miniatures are, we'll go through them in a minute. I've already briefly shown them on the screen. I've taken them off again now, but I'm briefly showing them on the screen. They're beautiful as they are. I'm not as enthused by them because they don't feel like this is going to be an good growing thing. I'm sure Games Workshop are aware of that. It's one of those things, unfortunately. But so I think I understand both sides of that camp, so to speak. It's not a worthless book for those that want the collection, but I imagine it will impact the numbers of them.
But as always, people always have an option of how they express that.
Absolutely.
And there may be certain people who are watching this at this point who are laughing because they saw my reaction to them saying Gulliver is going to be a metal. I did have a bit of a moment on that one because he was a model I did want. I do not want to be metal. I would rather eat it than paint it.
My guess is the reason he's in metal is because he's going to be legacy, isn't he? He's not going to be part of the ongoing miniatures range.
Could have just done in Finecast.
Why produce? Well, they won't do anything in Finecast now, and it costs money to more money probably to get the resin molds done for a shorter run. So again, they're probably not expecting to sell an awful lot.
Didn't he come out in resin for a while? That's the thing.
Maybe,
I think he was out in Finecast for.
Yeah, but they won't redo Finecast. Yeah, but they won't bring Finecast is gone. It's gone. And so anything that was Finecast that they haven't redone in new Forge World resin is now in metal. And that's the same for Warhammer, the old world. I would say a large majority, I don't like metal miniatures that much either, but a large majority of Middle-earth players quite like the metal. They quite like the nostalgia thing a bit. They got it in common with old world players who were loving this metal. I mean, I was looking over there when we were talking about the Slayer stuff. Apart from Ungrim, it's all metal. I would prefer plastic or resin, but it is what it is. I know for you that's just a hard no, you won't have it, which is a shame for you for that model. I don't like that model that much, if I'm honest with you. It doesn't have any resonance for me at all, which we'll get onto when we talk about some of the other decisions around legacies and things at the end. But let's talk. Shall we talk about the good stuff then? Shall we talk about the actual release? So if I get that first article up, Dan, I don't know if you have got access to it yourself as well, but I've
read it, so I will play off your tune.
Rise of Angmar article, the first one from the 8th of August. So the first thing we get to look at is the new the new miniatures, don't we? That's the first main thing. We get to see the
I
miniatures
believe
before we saw the
Aenor
book.
was first.
No, the first miniatures are the Warriors of the Khan-Dum.
Oh, that's it. Condom. That's the one. And then the chieftain and the Witch King's stooge, who's magic but not magic.
Yes, yeah. I mean, these are lovely, beautiful miniatures.
Beautiful minis.
I'm
Especially the stooge. He's super cool.
I mean, I can
really cool.
I've already seen people in old world groups saying, well, yeah, they're going to buy these and use them as chaos warriors and things like that. And you could see
expensive way of doing it.
Yeah, but interesting.
And
so we've got
they will be too small.
Yeah, I think they would be as well.
The Bjornings are for fantasy scale. If because they're 28mm heroic, so they'll be too small. They will look minuscule.
But people are that. It was more of a comment on the impact that those sculpts have.
The models are cool as hell.
They are cool, but they do have more of a fantasy aesthetic, a modern aesthetic, than some of the older film-based things. And then the next thing on the article,
I think all of them do though.
Yeah, I think so. Well,
the Bjornings do. The Black Dragons do.
Yeah.
All of them have a far more
I think they're all leaning that way. I really
aesthetic.
like the new aesthetic. I'm a fan of it, but there is a change.
It's nice to paint.
Now they're not having to make for these miniatures. They're not having to make movie likenesses and get those signed off. So there's a difference. Not just because they're digital sculpts not made by the Perrys now. These are different. These are different things. But so after that,
the details are more defined as well. They're less tight, so you can get into the detail. Like trying to paint old Theoden's armor. Ugh. Compared to the new one.
Absolutely. So after that in the article, we've got the book cover itself, which is we won't review that. We know what those books look like, and then we've got the kind of closer pictures. So we've got the Witch King guy, which I really like him. Again, I think someone commented again, another old world reference, but I think someone said he'd make a really good outcast wizard for use for Bretonians. So
he also reminds me of the Dark Emissary from the Albion campaign a little bit. Not the face mask, obviously, but the overall aesthetic. It gives me Sharky vibes as well.
Yeah, lots of that going on. Arwen, the first chieftain, he's the next. I really like that miniature. Very, very cool. And again,
it feels very old school.
He does old school,
high fantasy, old school.
Yeah, sculpting style, no, more modern, but the actual
the pose and the aesthetic to it. It's got a real sort of old school swords and sorcery. If you saw him as a Hero Quest miniature, you wouldn't be surprised. Yeah,
definitely. Very cool, very cool. And then Shadow of Rudar. Yeah,
strange mini.
It's a nice mini. It doesn't do too much for me.
Yeah, it's not my copper, if I'm honest with you. I think that's the weakest of the releases for this.
But I'd always be more drawn to the Dunedain rather than than this anyway. So I think that's more to do it than anything else. And then we get on to the trolls, which are just beautiful.
I was initially very swung by those. I was like, let's do a troll country army, and no, I've got to be good. No, not happening.
They are beautiful, really nice.
They're super cool. I think they'd make some really interesting stand-ins for just Mordor trolls as well.
Yeah, well, of course. Apart from them wearing a little bit of clothing, they would fit anyway. I imagine they will be interesting when we find out the full list of stuff that's kind of legacy. I can't imagine they're going to get rid of some of these newer things straight away. They're going to try and find a way to make sure that they stay in the range, I think, and pay back, sell enough of them to pay back the investment that's gone into the sculpting time, the mould, and all the rest. Then we've got the werewolves, which are just beautiful fantasy miniatures, regardless of where you use them for. You can use these in so many different settings.
I'd be interested to see the size of them, because I think they could prove really interesting, and I think you may see variations on those for wild chieftains and stuff.
Yeah, I think they're big. By the looks of the ruins and stuff, it wouldn't surprise me if those weren't
60mm.
60 mils, yeah. I was just thinking, was it 40 or it could be 50, maybe 50s, but they're big. They're big. So that's really, really cool. And then we've got news of a new edition, which didn't just come the day afterwards. No, or was it the same day? I can't remember.
Same day. I think it was later on the same day.
Same day. That's it. It was madness.
Which I thought was a little.
I'll be honest now. I'll be honest. I think that was absolutely crazy thing to do. I guess they kind of wanted to be honest straight away and not let people get too into excitedly talking about this book and what it might mean. So maybe that's why. But at the same time, it was crazy. But yeah, so we now, they haven't given us an awful lot of information at this stage. It was just like there's a new edition coming. And a little bit of a blurb
by end of the year, though.
Suggested,
given that they've,
I'd say so. I think
everything suggests that it should be by the end of the year. If they're announcing now, I think so.
Yeah, I think so too. And there was something else in between, because that article was pretty basic. There was another one when they actually mention the film, wasn't there?
And they did the shorts. I swear they did the shorts on the YouTube, is where it kind of.
And that's probably what it is. It was probably on Facebook or something like that. But at the same time, we got this kind of, there's a new edition on the way. There was also the teaser to do with the film. So right away, people were putting two and two together and working out what was going on. And then the most recent article, which was today, actually, we've got a designers talking about what to expect from the new edition.
I'll confess I haven't read it yet. But
it's a little bit of a commentary on the book, Angmar book, and what's going on in the future, really. And there's probably been more articles since then, but rather than me scroll through things that people can see, I'll take that back off the screen. So we're back on now, Dan. So you can put your fingers away. But I think for me, as soon as I knew there was a new edition, that was my decision. Yeah, like you, I immediately thought, I think December. Isn't the film December?
Yes, it would. I'd be very surprised if they did it in conjunction. I mean, the SEO value will drive for people searching Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, exactly. And the film company tends to want that stuff out at the same time as well. And quite often, merchandise and toys and games come out earlier than the film as well, because it's used as marketing in the run-up. So we may well find it could be out in November time. It's not impossible.
Well, that's what happened last time, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
I think when they first did I think they definitely teased models prior.
So, and
absolutely, definitely.
You probably know more about the film than I've done. I've watched little bits, so we know it's
Rohirrim. Yeah, there's some loads of stills kicking about now from it, and obviously there's was it Miranda Otto is voicing Arwen, who's supposed to be some kind of like a narrator, like it's a throwback to like almost like Galadriel starting off the original trilogy. And then it's Brian Cox voicing Helm, which perfect. Yeah, I've seen some bits and pieces so far. I've tried to avoid as much as possible if I can, to be completely honest with you, purely on the basis that I am excited to see it. I absolutely will go see it in the cinema. We did have a discussion prior to recording tonight about the cinema and stuff like that in general, didn't we? And it's definitely one I will go and see, 100%.
Yeah, yep. I would look to take Jacob to it, providing the rating is no more than a 12A, I suppose. Then
I'd be surprised if it was more.
Yeah,
very surprised, especially given it's animated. If anything, I'd be more surprised if it was more than a PG, really.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah, I agree. But I'm looking forward to it. Do we know? I haven't, like you, I've deliberately not got too much into the hype for it because I want to enjoy it when it comes out. But do we know?
Lord of the Rings, I'll love it.
Do we know anything about the storyline and the other participants aside from the Rohirrim?
Done Lendings, I believe, as far as I'm aware, which opens up some interesting topics for discussion about whether there's.
That's why I asked you whether we knew about that, and then we don't know whether there will be a 2-player starter. It could just be a book, But my
Could it be
money
the
would be
long-awaited Riders of Rohan reboot? Could it be the
yeah,
beginning of new plastic troops for Middle-earth for existing factions?
that would be cool, wouldn't it? It might just
Can
be
you imagine?
plastics for whatever's in the launch box and back to as you were,
Well,
which would also be understandable as well. But so I would
I don't
be
know.
I would be
It
very
makes you wonder.
surprised if a new movie deal, when they've clearly got a deal because they've shown the film logo in
Yeah,
their teaser. So that's a must. We know that's going to
but they've
happen.
been sued into oblivion otherwise, wouldn't they? It's Warner.
Exactly.
They don't play around.
Exactly. And we know that it's a new edition. So I would suggest that they wouldn't get away with using the old models in this. If there is a starter box, they wouldn't get away with using old models in the starter box. There would have to be new miniatures to match that. Probably.
Ooh.
We could just be characters and things. It's not impossible, but I
Because
would
I
wonder
really
whether there's
like the
new,
Helm Hammerhand model, so I might have to
yeah,
pick that up just in case they do a plastic
case
and
of new,
kill off the resin.
yeah. Well, that's the other thing is it's obviously this is the first question I had to myself really was all of the likenesses so far have been based off real actors, not off animated. Will this garner a change in art style for the Middle Earth range, or will they manage to kind of just blend between the two things enough that it doesn't seem wow? So this is your movie likeness, Aragorn standing next to your cartoon character. You could argue that what we've been talking about a couple of minutes ago about the new style, anyway, already looks a little bit like maybe. How long has this film been in development? Maybe they've already been working on these things for a long time and had early access to pictures, and maybe they've already started where they've been able. Maybe they've already started to kind of edge that style. So what we've just looked at for Angmar, all those new those new warriors, maybe they've already been edging that style towards a more cartoonesque style because that's what was coming in the future. So that will be interesting to see whether how much control the new line of sort of trying to insert, or Warner Brothers trying to exert over the miniatures, or whether they're just happy because Games Workshop's had the license for so long to kind of pretty much. I know everything gets signed off and approved, but in terms of whether it's kind of, will you keep producing miniatures in your current style, the new style, not the old, but produce miniatures in your new style as long as it matches the look of the
only
uniforms and things.
That gives to that is Elrond, Treebeard.
Yeah,
They're bang on for their screen likeness. I mean, Elrond is Hugo Weaving.
He is, but I suppose.
I mean, I know that.
I suppose because you can see that it's a digital sculpt, they still have something. There is a familiar. It's because it's probably the same sculptor or the same one or two sculptors. There is a familiarity with those newer style miniatures as well. If that makes sense.
Well, I
would say that it's got
Gav
one
with a
foot
sharp
in both
stick
things.
next time I see him.
But it looks like there's a style that kind of fits with both camps, if that makes sense, for things like Elrond. So yes, it's recognisable as Elrond from the film, but the miniatures have got slightly more chunky, haven't they? Slightly upscaled. That matches the newer things more. So maybe that will mean that the whatever comes out new will feel more like the existing new stuff rather than so different from the old. Though I'm sure people that don't like it will point out that it's nothing like the old stuff or something like that. But
oh well.
So, but
Begs the question: how would you feel if they
starter
decided
box
to
with lots of new stuff in it because it's a film, because it's a brand new film? I think that would be the way they'd want to go, and maybe it's all of it. The interesting thing will be how big will it be? Because the last couple of times they feel like they're giving you quite a lot of value for your money because they're giving you older miniatures. I wonder if this time it'll be a little bit smaller because it's new. If it's all new stuff, I wonder if you'll get a little bit less. I don't know. I'm just wondering out loud.
They've had a habit. I mean, if you look at Dominion and what was it called? Well, the last couple of big boxes they've done have been what, 170 quid. I mean, the new Skaven Tide's 170, isn't it?
It was
Something like that.
No, I think it was 150, wasn't it?
It's still a lot.
It's not a small amount of money. It's good value for the amount of miniatures you get, but yeah, they are expensive.
Yeah. And then obviously the Heresy one was 175, wasn't it, originally?
Yes.
I think Legions Imperialis was 140, something like that. So they're all getting pretty chunky in money wise. Yeah. I can't remember how much Osgiliath was. It's about 110, 120.
Yeah, I think so. Well,
seems about right for me.
The current Age of Sigmar starter, the ultimate set. So this isn't Skaven Tide.
Yeah, that's about 150, isn't it?
It's 130.
Oh, okay.
That's not the launch box. It depends. I got a feeling with SDS they won't go for that 2-tier thing.
No,
it'll be like they normally do. So I don't think that.
I doubt they'll be allowed the shelf space. To be fair,
exactly. I don't think it's so. Let me just have a little look, see if it says how many miniatures are in that.
I think it'll be you get the same stand space you got for Pelennor and then Osgiliath.
Miniatures. 37 miniatures for 130 quid.
Okay.
So it's a 72-page rule book, and then you got your 20 Skaven clan rats, your 3 ogres, your warlock engineer, Grey Seal, and Norbeast guy, and then you've got your sort of 10 Stormcast mixed type. So I think we could be looking at £130 box maybe, just to have enough miniatures to play. But we could also, we don't know what the new edition's going to do to warband sizes and stuff. Again, looking at the commentary on it, it sounds like it's again not going to change too much. They were very clear to say in some of the articles, very clear to say we're not, the game system has very, very, very slowly changed in each edition, and we know it's a popular game system. It's not changed much since first edition, and we have no intention of completely rewriting or changing a game that people love. Again, that's praising, but it's pretty much what they said.
One thing, bring Bolifire back.
I mean, I fall in the camp of quite liking things like special strikes, which I always forgot to use, or just was always too complicated for me at the point of simplifying those parts. Some people don't like it. I get that, but for me, for a very casual player now of Middle Earth, things like that I wasn't using anyway, I can see it makes a lot of sense.
The only time I ever remember to use it was a case of if I'm fighting with Bjornings, assume that they're using piercing. Because why wouldn't you kill my stuff and
I personally don't mind that as a casual player. I can imagine if I was a tournament regular, then that I would miss.
But there's so much nuance in it now. The fact they're actually broadening the scope of the profiles across fight value, it always mystified me. It's always surprised me that they've had all that play space, and they've pretty much had almost 95% of the profiles sit within 3 levels.
Yeah, it didn't make sense.
Which has always seemed like a gross waste of potential for, it's such a huge opportunity to add differentiation into races, into individuals and stuff
without special rules bloat. Special rule bloat, which is what always makes games more complicated.
But the problem is there's too much of it. Without rewriting every profile in the game, you couldn't start changing it and waiting for it to cycle around, because the faction balance would go straight out the window. So the fact they're doing it now, great. I'm really happy about that.
I'm really excited about it, and we talked about it in the show, but with Jake, I'm taking Jacob to the cinema. Jacob's watched Lord of the Rings in the past. He needs to watch them again now, because obviously he's probably been two or 3 years since he's watched them, and he's forgotten most of it. But I will take him to see this, and I will be buying this starter. I'm assuming I'm going to make an assumption that there is a starter. It'd be madness if there isn't. I imagine it's a 2-player starter that will match something that's going on in that film. And if it's, I don't know, even if it's 12 Rohan versus 20 Wildman or something, whatever it happens to be, that could be a good, fun game. And if they've stripped back some of that stuff, I'm really looking forward to building it and playing some games with Jacob.
And I really like what they've talked about in terms of the way you build armies now, the ally system, encouraging narrative play.
Yeah.
You know, as much as that's a bit of a red rag to a bull to some people, I get it. I generally have played Middle Earth in that vein ever since then, even if it's handicapped me.
Yeah.
You know, I think I'm the only person I know of that's gone to a tournament that decided to use the White Council list instead of taking Vanquishers.
Yeah.
And I suffered for it.
So
horribly.
for non-Middle Earth players, then let's just clarify what that means. So at the moment we have a rule book, 2 army list books, Lord of the Rings, Hobbit, and then we have all these different supplements. And then those supplements, there's narrative. There's also new profiles introduced each time. I use these examples a lot. So if you watch my old world videos, I use this as an example of the way that game could go. Quite a lot of people will be familiar with it. And then there was lots of ways of doing army lists. You could build your own army list just taking from the traditional Lord of the Rings army, etc., etc.
Yeah.
Or you could also have, which they introduced with the last edition, something called a Legendary Legion, which was like a focus point from a famous film, famous scene in a film, or a point in the fake history of Lord of the Rings. That was, so you'd have the Pelennor Fields charge, that kind of thing, those kind of thing. I'm making it very open and lame, and this is for
Defenders of Helm's Deep is a really good example.
So, loads of little things. So you think of a famous scene from a film and a battle scene, there might be a Legendary Legion for it. And all it does is it takes out a bigger army list and reduces it down to a smaller number of things that you can choose from. So what they're doing essentially is making all army lists Legendary Legions now. They're removing that kind of wider thing, isn't it? That's my understanding of it.
It seems it's a little bit more prescribed, which, you know, I'm fine with.
Well, I think we talked about this on Out of the Frying Pan years ago now, that we both loved Legendary Legions and that we'd be quite happy if we just picked your Legendary Legion. I think there's some really smart business reasons for doing it as well. So something else they've announced then, because I suppose this is all linked, is that they're going to be, there's going to be the new rule book, of course. There's still going to be a new armies of Lord of the Rings, a new armies of Hobbit, which will only include things that are in the films, which is new. Beforehand, it would have all of the legacy stuff from the older past. A lot of this stuff in this new Arnold book that we're talking about wouldn't make it into those 2 books. Because it's not from film stuff, is it?
The Witch King.
Witch King could, but yeah, a lot of it would. And then there's going to be
and orcs,
and there's going to be a 3rd book that's coming out a little time afterwards, which is going to be called, I think, Armies of Middle Earth or something like that. I'm guessing. And that is going to be other things that are not included in the film, but they still written army lists for. So this is where I think
the awnings will end up in there, I reckon.
Yeah, this is where I think the things that they've more recently invested lots of money in and are more modern and that still sell well will find its way into some kind of lists. But they're also going to legacy a lot of stuff as well. We already have that now anyway. There's a lot of stuff that isn't on the main, either brought back as a made to order or brought back temporarily for a little while. They rotate stuff in and out of the range all the time just to keep the number of SKUs down, don't they?
I am just glad my future project is Azog's Legion, because that's definitely in the movies.
Definitely in the movies. So this is the news, I suppose. So lots of people are obviously upset about potentially losing some stuff forever. They're going to also, there's going to be a PDF like they do for all other game systems that they're doing this for, that gives you latest edition rules for anything that's legacied, but I think that's probably going to be it, at least until they have to bring it back as a new sculpt in the future, if it ever made. But it focuses on that. Now, I've been pretty vocal on the old podcast when I used to say I kind of just like the stuff from the films. In terms of my gaming, I was never as excited about the things that were like the Harad and stuff like that. Yeah, it's fine, but never excited about it personally. But I know a lot of people are fans of those things and will miss them. For me,
Khazad-dûm will be a blow because they're lovely.
Yeah. There's some of my dwarves will not be included, I am sure. So it will impact me as well. So not just me sitting pretty on film armies. Some of those things will be legacy, or at least made into that third book, which comes out a little bit later on, depending on whether they want to keep the miniatures going. Some of those are plastic, so maybe I might be lucky. Some of my dwarves are plastic. So some of it might survive from the extended film cut, actually. Some of the dwarves from that, they might be in that. So I might be okay for those. But I get it. Some people will be disappointed. But I can really understand. The game got huge, and some of the stuff they were supporting were old models that they can't keep in the range, and Games Workshop can't keep up as it is. I talked about this in a lot of my old world stuff. Games Workshop cannot keep up with production and keep stuff on the shelves for any of their game systems at the moment. You go even 40k, you'll look at them, you scroll down, it's not too long before you hit the reams and reams of temporarily out of stock stuff. They just can't make stuff enough, and they've got problems, and they've already announced that they're building their new facility nearby and all those things, but it'll take a long time before that's online. So it's not surprised that they're looking at ways of streamlining, but it also seems like if you're new, if you watch that Lord of the Rings film, the new one this December, and you think, oh yeah, that's good. I've seen. I remember the films when they came out. I remember the Hobbit ones. I didn't like those as much as I liked the Lord of the Rings ones, which I watched when I was a kid. That would probably be the most people would have that kind of thing. Well, but I really like this. Look at this new film. Oh yeah, their Games Workshop made a game for that. Oh, I might look that up now. It makes sense that there's a new starter which reflects the film, and that the other stuff that they see first is going to be things that they also find recognisable, rather than going, Far Harad, what's this? I don't remember that from.
Why is the camels?
Why are the camels in this? And why do they look really weird? But I get it. It's a really good opportunity to re-image. I know there'll be people out there that are angry at this. There might be comments I know about it, but I can sympathise, but I can really. It's a decision I would have made.
Yeah.
Yeah. If someone said to me, "Do you look? This is we got to cut back. What do you think?" I'd say, "Yeah. You know what? It's sad, but nothing can keep going and lasting forever like that. And if you're going to make cuts, make it to the stuff that's not in the films."
Because they can't redo it, even if they were like. I get the sneaking suspicion that Middle Earth has done better potentially than it was expected by GW when they've reintroduced it, particularly when they've done the 0.5.
Yeah,
it sold really well. It appears to have gained traction because it does sell out regularly, and that's not just because of range rotation, but there's even core stuff that goes. It appears to be much more popular than it used to be. So, and it appears to have been invested in, which is fantastic. The fact that GW have even gone for this license, suggests there's some faith in it, because that won't have been cheap. That would have cost them, because that'd be a whole separate agreement. That it would have been new models, new tooling potentially. Putting, if it's anything like when they did Lord of the Rings originally, it means that they've taken probably one or two, maybe more members of their permanent team and put them in a box, because they're not allowed to play with everyone else. And it certainly was the case the first time round.
Yeah,
that's a considerable investment, which means that they've got faith in it, which means hopefully we're getting new models. So they can't do everything. Yeah. They're never going to. It'd be like trying to ask them to redo the entirety of, well, look at the old world. They've not been able to.
No. I still get comments on my videos now with people saying they messed this up.
Old minis.
Don't get me wrong. I draw those comments in by doing a video titled 6 months in, how's the game doing? But you know that one guy got very, very angry about fences, didn't he? Really angry about fences, because he wants high elves now, high elves straight away. And and some people just don't, and there might be people watching this that disagree with it, just don't understand that. Even when you've still got those plastic ranges, you've still got the tooling there. You can't just produce whole factions, all 9 of them in Old World's case all at once. For Middle Earth, it's even harder, because so much of it needs a redesign anyway. So there's no way you can just go, right, well, we need to replace all the old plastics, because you've got to want them all in one go. So maybe
who would you do first?
We're lucky, and the film, maybe a boost from a film sales will give them the investment to go back and change it. We don't know that. That's a real wish list.
If there's something GW's probably learned from, it's not doing that from the first time round. So I don't think anyone should get their hopes up about that one. As someone who unfortunately had to live through the downsizing of retail at the time, I wouldn't wish that on anyone who works at GW for that to happen again. That sucked. So they
I
will
can
be
imagine.
much more careful.
Oh, of
about
course
how
they won't.
they,
They won't be going. Let's face it. This film is going to be a big for fans of Lord of the Rings. I think.
Yeah.
We talked offline before this. We talked about Cineworld, which are all the cinemas near me. Half of them are closing because people aren't going to the cinema anymore because it's all streaming based. This film won't be big news, I don't think. It's, people aren't going to be talking about this at all.
No,
It's
animated as well.
It's
and that
animated
alienates
film,
people.
and people outside of nerddom won't be talking about this in January, I don't think. Not really. So this isn't going to be this new huge thing. This will be selling to existing gamers, maybe some gamers that haven't tried the game before. Maybe they play other game systems. Maybe people that have come from other game systems outside of Games Workshop maybe will be tempted in by it. So I think it will sell units.
Maybe old school gamers back in the day.
Maybe, old ones have it. But I don't think outside of Wargamers, I don't think it's going to be huge. So this isn't going to drive another boon for them at all. No way. No. Space Marines are far bigger than Lord of the Rings these days.
Well, on that note, Space Marine 2's out next month. And that actually doesn't just look like a good game for a Games Workshop game. That legitimately looks a
like
good
really
game.
Yeah,
I am quite excited about it.
So
I've already pre-ordered it. I will have it.
Have you? I haven't got time to play games like that. Maybe one day. So I think it's going to be a really positive time. I think the change is smart. I think the people that want new plastics, not saying it's happening, but the people that want new plastics, the legacying of lots of the range, and I'm going to guess it's going to be quite a lot of the range, it probably moves you closer to new plastics than it would be trying to maintain that large range. I think that's certainly that's the way you will see anyway. a modernised range. And let's face it, if Games Workshop is still selling metal miniatures in another 5-10 years' time, I'll be surprised. There's going to be a change, isn't it? So at some point, the cost of metal's going up and up. Less and less companies are producing stuff in metal. There's going to have to be a shelf life on it eventually. So at some point, changes will have to happen, and those metal ranges will go anyway. So right now, they're still bringing back miniatures in metal, as we've seen. One that Dan doesn't want, and I find all the time with the old world. But at some point in the future, they've got to be thinking about not producing in metal anymore. Every other games company in the world is, even Wargames is moving away from metals. It's only the really small businesses now that are still producing in metals, because when you only produce a few hundred of a miniature, that's the most affordable way of doing it. But when you're producing large quantities, it's actually really expensive to produce in metal, and they don't want to be producing in metal. And that's where these Sirecast machines come along. Games Workshop was always different. It's always... Well, we didn't talk about this, actually. We've got to talk about this in the news. We'll talk about this at the end. But the example of their response to AI, we'll leave that as a teaser, shows that the Games Workshop was a little bit further behind in terms of... It's a little bit old school, isn't it? It still makes printed books and sells them, when most of the war games out there are moving towards apps and stuff for everything. Still does things old school and old-fashioned. You can't
I do like
3D
that, though,
yet.
to a degree.
Me too. I think it's
I
really
like
important.
a respect for classic medium, and I like holding a book. I don't want to do everything off a screen.
I want both. Always want both, but that's a different tool. I want to own the book, to
no,
love it, and to hold it,
to
to stick it on the shelf. But when I quickly want to check a rule, it's nearly always on my iPad. Or when I'm at a games table, it's probably going to be on my iPad. I'd like both because it keeps my books nice.
That's the downside of GW and everything in books, because you may play a faction that needs 5, like Necromunda. Jesus, you need 5 books just to play a game. Yeah. So yeah, absolutely iPad, 100%. But
yeah, that's because Tony loves Necromunda.
Tony does.
There's a lot of books.
But if we can't remember everything, as God knows how he does.
But yeah, I think ultimately it's probably a really good positive sign for the future, because that news is coming along with news of a new edition. I think maybe if that news came along and it wasn't part of a new edition, or it was, there is a new edition but it's book only and we're shrinking the range, I can imagine people would be a lot more nervous about it then. But this doesn't feel like that. There's a new edition coming. And by the way, we've clearly got the rights to this film that's coming out. literally hold on to your horses, or maybe not. Maybe
Yeah.
sell your horses, because there might be new horses, on the way. Cool it here, but
that's the only downside. If there is a box, I don't really want to paint horses. I don't like painting horses.
They won't be. You're clearly going to be a wild man, Dan. Clearly going to be a wild.
Well, they have cavalry.
They do.
So who knows?
That, I suppose, that is the only. I've not even seen this box. We don't even know whether it exists yet. But like I say, assumptions here. That is the only thing that I would say about it. Is it feels like an interesting topic for a film anyway. It feels a little bit kind of niche.
Yeah.
In terms of starter sets, it's within the wider context of really cool, iconic Lord of the Rings moments. It feels a bit niche anyway. So I do wonder whether, as a starter, whether it's ongoing rebuyability, say 2-3 years on. So right now, if people I want to get into Middle-earth strategy battle game, you go, yeah, here's your starter. Remember this iconic scene from the film. If someone comes along in 2 years' time, for example, and says, "I fancy starting Middle-earth strategy battle game. I love the Lord of the Rings films. Cool, here's the starter. What's that? Did you see that anime film? No, I didn't watch that. Did that come out? I missed that."
Well, yeah. Plus, it's not even got the book to fall back on. Which, even if you hadn't seen the movies, if you're aware of Lord of the Rings,
so I think it could be brilliant at the time. But I wonder if the shelf life of it as an eye-catching box on the shelf to get new people in could be shorter, depending on how popular the film is. We don't know, but if the film suddenly becomes this cult classic and it's amazing and people go to see it, and then or makes its way quite quickly onto good streaming platforms, so quite a lot of people get to see it, so that it's if it ends up on Netflix. So where does Warner Brothers have? Do they have a link with what streaming platform do they have?
I'd expect to see.
Do they have their own or something now?
No, I don't think they've got their own. I think a lot of their stuff ends up on Now, which is part of Sky.
Yeah, so answer in the comments if
you know.
In the US,
Amazon may get it.
They could do.
Because they had the actual movies, the original trilogy, and then The Hobbit for a while. They had those.
I just wonder whether Warner Brothers has a streaming partner or not. In the US, because we have different over here, so it might be one in the US. Because if it's one in the US and it's not Amazon or Netflix, it's not Disney. We know it's not Disney. It's not Amazon or Netflix. Then it might well be.
It's not HBO either.
Yeah. Okay. So then maybe it will be. We'd end up being like a Now TV thing, like you said. Which is, I think anyone can get hold of. You can just sign up for a month, can't you? So if you want to watch it,
Max.
Okay, is that something you have over here or not?
Max offers content from Warner Brothers, Discovery, HBO.
Okay, is that a UK one as well, or it's definitely not a household name? I would say not the same way as Netflix.
No, it's they want to roll out Max. Internationally.
Okay.
This is great television for everyone else.
Yeah, well, I think people are still watching at this point.
Yeah.
2 hours into it. That it's not a huge thing, but I think it could be really good if it ended up on Netflix relatively quickly or ended up on Amazon relatively quickly, because that would mean that more people get to see it, and the more people I'm thinking from UK centric here, more people that get to see it in the UK, which is where their biggest I know, sorry if you're in other parts of the world, this is where Games Workshop's biggest market probably for that kind of thing is. I know the US market's huge as well, but I think for Middle-earth strategy battle game, I think UK is probably its biggest market. Then it could go well, but I think it's people need to see it, don't they, to get excited about it. And
yeah, I kind of wish they'd done like the Silmarils or something. Theanor versus Morgoth would have been pretty cool. But
again, I think
based on
commercially that's not great, and I think that's part of the problem for you looking.
The best bit's already been told.
Exactly. The Rise of Angmar is going to be fun, but also, is it fun? It's a. as a Lord of the Rings fan, I'm really looking forward to looking for that book, reading it, sticking it on my shelf. But in terms of getting new people into it as a war game, and you need it's got to the stage where now the edition's really popular. Most people would argue that it's the best edition of the game it's had. I've got this beautiful set of things that cover so much. Almost anything you can think of from the films is covered one way or another. Some lovely new miniatures, that more than we expected. But the game has reached that point now where we are starting to delve into the appendices and we just ask Amazon how dipping into the appendices goes for your popularity for multiple reasons. I enjoy watching it for what it is. It's fine. I'm looking forward.
I'm excited about season 2.
Me too. Yeah. Me too.
I've been rewatching season 1 this week.
But it's not enjoy it. It's not the gold that they would have wanted, and I think that whoever gets the rights in another 10 years' time or 5 years' time to come along and redo those films, but as a series, will get more mileage out of it than they have with this. Whoever's making Harry Potter into the series, the more in-depth version of the series, I think that they will be more popular than what's going on with Rings of Power, because people are always going to be really nitpicky anyway. But when you've got you haven't really got the rights to a story to tell, it gets really hard to tell the little bits of stories, apart from people who really, really know the lore very well, that spend their whole time picking holes in it. And we're probably at that point with the game design. So you're making it for really niche fans of a war game or Lord of the Rings. And what you need is something that's really marketable and in your face. And that's a boost to those films again. And the only way to do it is new films. They didn't get the license for Rings of Power. I'm sure they tried. For whatever reason, they didn't get it. No one has it, do they? I don't think anyone's making a war game for it.
No, I'm kind of glad they didn't, to be honest with you.
Me too, because I don't know what it would have done to them.
It would have blurred the lines. It would have horribly muddied the water. And I think it'd have required a level of investment they wouldn't sustainable over a long period and have caused a bust. Yeah,
I agree. My assumption is that whatever the deal with this film, the film's got a limited remit, limited scope anyway. So they're probably able to do that without too many sculpts. Maybe it means sculpting 2 brand new fully plastic or plastic and a mixture of plastic and resin armies, which also can then fit in and be used within the wider game, but without adding too many profiles to it as well. So they're probably able to produce something for this game that matches that, but then also not completely derail the existing game, because you don't want to give up on the real gold, and the real gold is those original 3 films. I think you're right. If they did Rings of Power, that would have taken over, wouldn't have sold as well, and the original films would have almost been legacied, which would have been foolish.
I would have loved to have seen modern plastic sculpts of the orcs from Rings of Power, though.
Yeah, all the skulls and things. Beautiful stuff in there, and they are different, but they also kind of fit in enough to that. I just don't. I don't think it would have been as popular. So we will see. I hope that it's a kind of a really good deal for a new edition and a starter. But maybe we'll find that in 18 months, 2 years time, they do a 1.5 edition again, or whatever it happens to be, and then when that comes out, that's reskinned back to Middle-earth strategy battle game again. Wouldn't surprise
you never know. People may get their long-awaited reboot of bloody. Everyone's always on about Lost Alliance, aren't they? Maybe that'll happen.
Oh God, yeah.
Who knows?
That was I suppose the one book that hasn't been done that people keep asking for, and maybe it would have, because maybe Angmar would have come along quick enough for that to come out. I wouldn't be surprised if that got caught up in any kind of announcement or any kind of negotiations that didn't work out with Amazon at the end, and maybe the lines were too blurred there with what Amazon didn't have the rights for, but will also trying to tell a story of, which has some crossover. You think, I remember saying at the time, I thought that would have been the smartest thing to release if they were able to at the time, because they would have didn't get the license, but we can still bring out anything that people recognise by name, but in the old films, the Jackson film style. And So maybe they'll do that. We will see. But excited anyway. Feel genuine sympathy for the people whose stuff they love is going to be legacied and not longer part of the kind of the competitive scene. Props to GW for being really honest in that article to a point. To a point, I do think they could, just like I do with our world, I do think they could communicate a little bit better and tell us. I know there'll be legal reasons, I'm sure. Well, I'm sure there will be legal reasons, but they can't go into too much detail. But I also think they could probably do more. And if the reason was we were negotiating extending our license, that included the license for the film, and one that was going on legally, we couldn't release any more stuff. I'm pretty sure they could say something like that. I'm pretty sure many other Wargames companies would have said that as well.
Yeah.
And people will be a lot more sympathetic to you releasing a book now if they knew exactly. Instead of kind of most of us guessing and going, this is probably what's gone on. If they were able to, if they are able to legally, which my guess is they are, they should just say it. But that's not what they do. That's not what they do with any of their game systems. They don't communicate in that much detail, which is a bit of a shame sometimes.
They're a little bit of a black box as GW at times, and I think it's to their cost, and it's undermined a lot of the good work they did over the last 10 years in engagement. It really has.
Some of the engagement is absolutely brilliant, and there are other times when they just need to be serious, and you can see people are genuinely upset. I need to be serious. I like their responses most of the time on their social media and Facebook. It's quite funny, but there are times when I can remember the dwarf stuff.
They're not reading the room.
They're not exactly. Then they'll be announcing stuff. It's like when people were really like 16 weeks into no articles from Old World.
Then
you
put
can
in
look
that
at them. You look back at the
up.
dates. He went from like April. And at this point, it was getting awkward. Everyone was like, "What's going on?" But they were using teasers for the game, but without actually, and they were just making jokes out of it. So there are times when it goes a little bit wrong there, but most of the time, I think it's really good. Just you need to leave, but just be a bit more honest. People really respect honesty, don't they? So it was honest to say, yes, this book's got a short shelf life. We realise not all of you are going to be happy with that. Sorry, but we're still bringing it out because we thought a lot of you might like it. That's good. Tell you what, if you tell people why, or a little bit more why, then they'll understand you even more. And just because there will be a reason for it. There's no way that they've sat on a book in a warehouse for 2 years if they were able to bring it out. They didn't spend all that money producing a book to not sell it. So they've
I don't expect them to say we held it back for another 3 months because we were determined to wring whatever we could out of Age of Sigmar because we're determined to make it 40k even though it was never going to be.
That part I don't agree with. I think they should have carried on releasing, especially if it was sitting there in a warehouse, which we're guessing it was. Find out soon, boys. About just over 3 weeks, we'll find out when we get the books and we can look at the date. But if that's the case, I think they should have just released it at the same time.
Somewhere they've made poor Adam Troke sit in a warehouse and he's sticking new dates over every single one of them.
Just with a biro, just a Sharpie, just little black line over each one. Anyway, I think we've done that to death. If I can still find the image, I've probably got rid of the image now. Let me see.
Was this what I said earlier?
Yeah,
the Golden Demon stuff.
I have to do it without the image. Or maybe I'll be able to find it. Let me see. So I don't know if we talked about this. Did we talk about this on the last show or not?
Yeah, I believe we did a little while ago about the AI and all that.
Let's go to a preview on that.
Yeah, because I put it in our little chat we've got with Jordan, didn't I?
You did. So we were talking about AI, and there was a certain...
Shall I read out the rules? The three that were... so this is from...
might be able to find the image. There you go. It's not the neatest on the screen, but it's on the screen now, Dan. People can see it.
Yeah. So this was... I stole this from Golden Demon Compendium. That's a account on Instagram. You'd obviously look on the entry terms and conditions from that have been attached to the Golden Demon entry form for Spiel. And it gives clarification on a few points that have arisen following Neil Hollis's win for Gold 40k single mini at Golden Demon, which was that here or was that in the one in the States? It was
that
in
was
the
in
States.
The States. Yeah, we've not had one here this year.
Yeah, that was Adepticon, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So it clarifies essentially that everything has to be hand painted. You can't use digital painting or anything like that anymore. So it doesn't matter who painted it, you can't use it. And it also states that you can't use AI in any shape or form involved in your piece.
Nope.
Which are the two big things that came off the back of previously. As I rather glibly said in our chat, it just means, basically paint your word shouldn't use with a brush.
Yeah.
That's it.
Well, I think it's I would be surprised if they came back with anything else. I think it's really good that they didn't get caught up with it at the time because there was no need to.
Yeah.
They didn't create the problem. AI is difficult for all kinds of industries and people in general around the world at the moment to get your head around, and the impact is still probably still unknown.
Business has picked it up.
Yeah,
it's bloody everywhere. I mean, Microsoft Copilot's
even when I upload this video, I'll have to tick a box now to say that it's got no AI in it. That's a new thing. And we're all aware of this. People watching this don't need us to tell them that because they'll be aware of the same thing. So Games Workshop did nothing wrong the first time round. They have listened to what happened. They've swatched it and they've come out and the new rules for this year. It couldn't be more unequivocal. It's straightforward, isn't it? Don't use it.
Yeah,
and I agree with
now
it.
Neil's got his answer. You won't be able to do it again.
Yeah,
I still think the people who are saying that it should be posthumously put and you should take his award back off him.
No, not at all.
Behave yourself.
He won with what was allowed in the rules at the time. It's absolutely fine.
Yeah, it was. Absolutely. I mean, let's not touch that topic again.
I think he probably drew a little bit of criticism the way he reacted online afterwards. I think a lot of it was a bit tongue-in-cheek.
I think
but
if he was operating within the rules and he was getting that level of abuse, I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
It was him basically turning around and saying, "Who are you to judge me? F off," because the official judges judged me and gave me the gold. So do one.
I agree.
And you know what? I can't blame him. And if people were abusing me all over the shop, I would probably turn around and say F off and all.
Yeah, you get into a corner there.
It lacks some grace.
I don't know the guy at all. I never met him. I listened to him for years and years and years
with Greg.
Greg on the podcast, and I thought he always came across wonderfully, really nice.
Yeah.
And I did watch him on the painting phase when he was on there talking about it, and he probably came across slightly different than he did on the podcast. As I say, I don't know whether they're all.
I think the problem is.
But he was definitely under pressure and defending himself. And as I said, I don't think he's got anything to defend. I think there was a debate about it aside from him. I fall in the camp of I didn't like AI art being used in it, and Games Workshop clearly thinks that and have stopped it now. But I wouldn't say that.
I think the painting phase guys gave him a
actual painting was brilliant on that miniature, and the stuff he did paint was incredible anyway. So.
Eminently deserving of what he won. I do think the painting phase guys did him a disservice on that one because they didn't actually challenge him.
No, it was a bit.
It was a little sycophantic, that one. It was a bit hard to watch. They were probably awkward
as well because you got someone sitting there. Let's be honest. The painting phase is a bigger channel than this by far. Not as big as they used to be because their styles moved on. No, they're still doing it. And I know they're trying to do it. I respect
what they do.
They've set that up as a business and they're trying to do it professionally. But at the same sort of side of it, a lot of us in this industry making content aren't professional journalists. We kind of fall into the journalism side of it, and we're not there to give people a hard time when you interview them, especially in a friendly setting, talking about a war games hobby.
Yeah, because you ain't going to get people to come back, are you?
So when you get someone sitting around the table with you, if you turn into Jeremy Paxman, you're going to look like a complete. So I can understand that, but also
I think there's a middle road. You can pose people's questions and you can frame it because you can still see the legitimacy of someone's point, even if you don't necessarily agree with it or have to put it over in a forceful way. You can say, this is part of the broader discussion. Yes, you can, and I think unequivocally say, The rules on the day allowed you to do what you did. You won it based on those rules, fair and square. Crack on.
Yeah.
But it's encouraged discourse on the subject. And I think you can always play devil's advocate. I think there's a way of doing it without necessarily spearing someone.
Yeah, I think there's a bit more context for that as well, though, is that what those guys are as painters. So they're called the painting phase. And actually, they've been doing some really nice stuff on there recently, but they weren't ever, the guys that are left on the show weren't ever the painters as such. Peachy was the painter on there. They set it up before he joined, and then he's obviously left since. But it was just because they chatted while painting. They'd not. They learned that they probably are. They're probably more of the scene than we are now, because they're interviewing all these big painters all the time. But I suppose their background isn't from knowledge of the competitive painting scene, so maybe they don't have the knowledge to know how it works and the questions that you might ask if you've been following that for a while.
Talk to people. I'd be interested to see that discussion had between that level of those peers.
Yeah.
You know,
again, it's not. I've not seen that anywhere, because they probably don't want to have that conversation because it would be awkward.
I don't think most of the major like competition painters do this. They're too busy painting.
There's a few.
I'd say
they definitely don't get involved in commentary, do they?
Yeah, no.
They don't do what we're doing.
We should neither.
Well, maybe if we were better painters. I mean, you're a lot better than I am, but maybe if we were,
I look like painters, a paint with a masonry brick. It's like a masonry brush.
Maybe we wouldn't be involved in commentary on things either, because we'd be showing off our painting skills. That's why I do more talk to camera bits at the moment. Maybe who knows? But anyway, I think we've added this section, and the show is definitely petering out. And I think the percentage people still watching at this stage, when I check on the statistics once this is out, will be very few. So maybe it's time to call it a day. Have you anything you want to?
I 100% agree. So no, thank you as always to everyone who watched. If anyone's still here right now, thank you and well done.
Yeah.
Thank you to those who have still asked about Out of the Frying Pan up to this point. It is heartening that people actually gave enough of monkeys about it to still ask about it to this point. It's nice. So it's nice to know what you've done is appreciated. So thank you for all those kind words, and hopefully this wasn't too much of a disappointment after the wait.
Absolutely. Well, we'll see what happens when we got hold of the book. See whether it's whether we want to do one of these. I imagine we will talk about it on one of these. Whether we turn into a full review also will depend, if I'm honest with you. Like I said, personally, I'm not going to be engaging inside the book in terms of play or anything like that. I just don't see it. So in terms of a review, I don't know. But in terms of a hobby hour, if we've both got our copies, I'm sure we will spend some time talking about what we thought of it. Though when we get to new edition stuff, then we will definitely be back. And as we get more news, we may well do more of Out of the Frying Pan specials talking about the new edition stuff. We'll be covering it on the hobby hour, and I will be covering it on the channel, in the wider channel as well. How much so, I don't know. I will definitely pick up the new edition and aim to play it with my son. When that's, Games Workshop are going to be sending me a copy. So I will be waiting like everyone else in line, or ordering it. And once I've got it, then I will do some content based on it. And I quite like the idea of doing more of that thematic-y, see if I can get my son involved and see what he thinks and turn that into content that way. Because I imagine all the longer standing or more regular Middle-earth content creators will be doing all of the kind of really in-depth kind of review of the book and the rules and stuff, the crunchy stuff. So I will probably take a different approach and review it as how is this as a good starter for new people.
I'll wait and see what Into the West say about it, to be honest with you.
yeah. There's going to be loads of good content on it. So anyway, thank you very much for watching. Take care, and we'll catch you soon.